Chapter 968. After that day, Super Chin fell seriously ill. The cause of this illness was a fever. Because he had been training since a young age, Super Chin had always had a good physique. This sudden fever, which caught Father and Mother Chin off guard, left them flustered for a moment. There were a lot of people at the children's hospital, and it was normal for flu to change seasons. Neither Father Chin nor Madam Chin thought much of it at this time. No parents would associate their child's fever with a curse. On the way, Xiaoling changed the heat dissipation tape for him and took good care of him. Father Chin hadn't thought of letting Xiaoling come along at first, but the two children were too close. Furthermore, after taking care of Xiaoling during this time, Father Chin realized that while Wang Xiaoling was mute, she was also a stubborn girl. Once you've decided on something, it's hard to change it. But because she was worried that Xiaoling would also be infected, Xiaoling also made sufficient preparations under Madame Chen's careful guidance. For the past 2 days, the Chin family's meals revolved around the indigofera root. Radix a satatus noodle soup, radix a satatus egg stew, radix a satatus black tea, etc. There's no need for so many people to enter. You guys wait at the door. After the number was called, Father Chin carried the weak Super Chin into the clinic, which made the surrounding parents raise their eyebrows and make way for them. Poor child, this season's flu is not bad, but this child fainted from a fever. His physique is too weak. Seeing Super Chen's pitiful appearance, many people looked at him sympathetically. Most of the people here were parents, so they knew how anxious parents were in such situations. Father Chen had called for a specialist, and from the information on the door, this specialist was a famous doctor called Lu Min. He specialized in treating difficult and complicated diseases of children, and he was the chief specialist of the internal medicine department of this hospital. Seeing Father Chen come in with Super Chin on his back, the doctor couldn't help looking anxious. Lu Min had seen a lot of children today, but this was the first one to faint from a fever. Have you taken your temperature? How high is it? 42 degrees, and it's getting hotter and hotter. Yes, the situation is quite serious. But don't worry, I can cure him. Dr. Lu Min was very confident. Thank you, doctor. Father Chen was slightly relieved. It's just a small problem. There was one with a fever of more than 70 degrees. 70 degrees. Yes, and that child's parents are also very open-minded. Fry an egg on a child's forehead. I'll cool him down first. Dr. Lu cleaned his hands and then touched Super Chen's forehead. An azure light shone from his palm. This was the heat dissipation technique. This was just a basic spell. In fact, many cultivators could cast it, but this spell relied on basic skills and required a long period of cultivation. If one was not a professional doctor, most people could only temporarily suppress the effects of this spell. However, professional doctors like Dr. Lu were different. When they cast this kind of magic, they could completely suppress it. While casting the spell, Dr. Lu was also observing the scale on the sickbed. This sickbed was a scientific cultivation artifact jointly launched by the Academy of Magical Treasures. It could monitor the various physical conditions of the patients lying on it, saving the patients the pain of running around the hospital. It could be seen that after Dr. Lu cast the spell, Super Chen's temperature had dropped from 42 degrees Celsius to 39 degrees Celsius. But this was still not a normal human body temperature. No, the temperature won't go down. Dr. Lu shook his head. Is it a viral cold? Based on my experience, it definitely isn't. Dr. Lu said, does your child cultivate any special cultivation technique? Special cultivation technique? Yes. Dr. Lu nodded and said, some parents nowadays are too harsh on their children's cultivation before they reach the foundation establishment stage. They make their children pursue advanced cultivation techniques, but forget whether they're suitable for cultivation or not. If they're not compatible with the cultivation technique, they'll also have this abnormal fever. After hearing this, Father Chen immediately rejected it. My child's health has always been very good. Our family runs a body techniques dojo, and I've always had my child cultivate the most basic physique without pursuing any advanced cultivation techniques. After dismissing the possibility of Super Chen cultivating a special cultivation technique, Dr. Liu frowned. When did your child start to have a fever? It should have been in the wee hours of this morning, but it was already 6:00 when I found out. That's his training time. It wasn't until I went to his room that I realized he had a fever. Father Chen sighed and grabbed Super Chen's hand. Dr. Liu, if you know anything, please tell me. Your child's health is actually very good. From my examination, this abnormal fever can already be ruled out as an internal cause. But an external cause, that's out of my control. Dr. Lu Min said solemnly, do you have any enemies? Enemies? Father Chen was stunned. At that moment, he suddenly thought of Liang Heng. But Father Chen still didn't dare believe that Liang Heng would do something like this, that he would lay his hands on his child. What was more, this was just a guess at the moment. Even if Liang Heng did it, Father Chen currently had no evidence. Dr. Liu, is this the cause of the curse? Yes. Judging from various factors, I suspect that your child's abnormal fever might be due to a curse. Our hospital also has a curse dispelling department, but the curse on your child is a little complicated. Given that we don't know what kind of curse it is, it will take at least 2 days to dispel it, but these 2 days will delay the child's condition. Then what should I do? Father Chen was anxious. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Dr. Liu grit her teeth. She directly wrote a bunch of words in the medical record book that Father Chen couldn't understand, and then stamped it with her own seal. Take this medical record book and look for my Shifu in the western part of the city. He might have a way. Please believe me. Your child's illness can't be dragged on like this. Super Chen's temperature is now at 39 degrees, but this is only temporary. You have to take advantage of this time to get there. Dr. Liu's Shifu. Good. Thank you, Dr. Liu. Father Chen was shaken by Dr. Liu's appraising gaze. Now that things had come to this, he could only believe her. About 2 hours later, Father Chen followed the address Dr. Liu had given him and found the place. This was a Buddhist temple that had a slightly aged feel to it. Based on Dr. Liu's handwriting and seal in the medical record book, he found Dr. Liu's Shifu. This was a kind-looking monk whose hair and beard were already grizzled. Draped in a kasaya, he carried Super Chen over and said softly, Amitabha. Amitabha, which devil cast this curse on such a young child? It's really demented, master. Please save my child. Don't worry, benefactor. The Zen master nodded. Then, Father Chen saw him flick Super Chen's forehead with the flower-picking finger. A golden Buddhist light surged out and rushed out of the black chi inside Super Chen's body. Then, the Zen master wiped his sweat. Don't worry. Your child is fine now. Father Chen was skeptical. That's it. The Zen master, it's fine now, benefactor. I've already blessed your child. Father Chen. Chapter 969. Blessed, blessed. Father Chen was stupefied by the master's words. In all his years of living, this was the first time he had heard that a person could be blessed. I generally don't do this for people, but this child's situation is special. Saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. As for the cost, there's no need. The master smiled and said, when your child has fully recovered, I hope you can bring your family to the temple to cultivate with me for half a month. Father Chen touched Super Chen's forehead. Although Super Chen still looked very weak, he indeed no longer had a fever. Master Jin Dang's full-body blessed spell just now had indeed dispelled the curse. Father Chen had a respectful expression on his face. May I ask for master's name? This old monk's Buddhist name is Dang. Master Dang said in a clear voice, I didn't ask you to come here to cultivate with me for you to work for me. Instead, I predicted that in the next 15 days, the villain behind you will attack you again. Although my monastery is a little run down, it can ward off villains and turn misfortune into fortune. Thank you, Master. Father Chin nodded solemnly. This was too strange. Super Chin, who had always been in good health, had suddenly caught a cold, and when he went to the hospital, they couldn't find out what was wrong with him. In the end, it turned out that he had been cursed. If it hadn't been for that Dr. Liu and this Master Dang, Super Chin might have died from this curse this time. Thinking this, Father Chin couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. Liang Heng, apart from this scheming and competitive senior brother of his, Father Chin really couldn't think of anyone he knew who would do such a vicious thing. Father Chin never expected that Liang Heng would actually disregard even the slightest bit of brotherly camaraderie. You can't delay your cultivation. If you can come tomorrow, that would be the best. Before he left, Master Dang gave Father Chin one last word. Thank you, Master. I'll come tomorrow after I've sorted things out. Father Chin nodded. After that, Father Chen's job was to persuade Mother Chin. Father Chin was also very worried about Xiaoling's mom, so he persuaded her and Xiaoling to come to the temple to cultivate together. Contrary to Father Chen's expectations, his persuasion was quite successful. Because Father Chin was an atheist to begin with, he had never prayed to Buddha. Now that he had suddenly come up with the idea of quiet cultivation, and his attitude was so serious and earnest, Madame Chen and Xiaoling's mom were instantly intimidated. Master Dang, before Madame Chen retired to become a housewife, she was in charge of the census. She chewed the name over and over again, feeling that the monk's Buddhist name was a little familiar. On the first day of their retreat, Father Chin took Super Chin, Madame Chin, Xiaoling's mom and Xiaoling to this old Zen temple. The body techniques dojo was closed for the time being. Father Chin had informed the students in advance that they were going on a holiday, and to prevent losing students during this period, he gave each student 2 extra classes. Shutting down for half a month actually had a huge impact on the Chin family's income. But his health was more important. Even if they knew that Liang Heng was the one who cast the curse, they didn't know how Liang Heng cast the curse or how to block it. Fortunately, Master Dang pointed them in the right direction. Benefactors, this room is reserved for you. I hope that you can cultivate yourselves and live happily for the next half a month. A little monk led them to a courtyard house inside the Zen temple. Father Chin saw that it wasn't just them, there were also other people here for quiet cultivation. Thank you, little master. Father Chin also bowed. Oh, by the way, where is master? Shifu is giving a lecture in the main hall. This is his daily program, today's sermon. If you're interested, you can listen in. The little monk smiled. Today's sermon, Father Chin felt that the name sounded a little familiar. Master Dang was responsible for arranging the classes for the retreat. Since Master Dang was giving a lecture at the moment, Father Chin and the others naturally didn't want to disturb him, so he led them to the main hall to listen in. There were also a lot of people in the audience. They found a cushion on the side and sat down cross-legged to listen with great interest. It was only later that Father Chin learned that people came to Master Dang's Zen temple regularly for quiet cultivation. During this period, they could stay as long as they wanted as long as they paid for utilities and accommodation. Furthermore, the accommodation was very cheap. There were a lot of believers in this Golden Lamp Zen temple. From this, it could be seen that Master Dang was indeed a capable person. Every day, a lot of people came to listen in on the today's sermon segment, and a lot of people came to ask questions. Some of the people asking questions were disciples who were meditating in the Zen yard. They would come to ask questions when they had doubts, while others came from afar to ask for guidance. They asked all kinds of questions and asked all kinds of questions. Someone, a bald programmer, asked Master Jean Dang. The day before yesterday, 2 options suddenly popped up on my computer, telling me to either install a computer patch or choose to skip it. I don't know what to do. Is this a reminder from some security software? Master Jean Dang smiled slightly. Master, you have incredible foresight. This is a pop-up notification from 360 Security Guard. Master, please explain what I should do. Benefactor, you're mistaken. In fact, you can choose 3, uninstall 360 Security Guard. Master, is wise. Everyone, the second person to ask a question was a woman who was meditating in the Zen temple. Father Chen heard that she had been waiting in line for a long time, and it was only her turn today. When it was finally her turn to ask a question, the woman's eyes were full of tears. Master, my son doesn't think about improving himself all day long, and wants to become an idol. What should I do? Become an idol. Most children nowadays have this idea, but little do they know that this line of work runs deep and can't be set foot in easily. Master Jean Dang sighed. Master is right. But my son won't listen. The woman was a little helpless. How about this, I'll write you a poem, and you can put it on your son's bedside. The woman asked, what poem? Master Jean Dang took out a page of golden paper and wrote as he said, to become an idol, hair parted in the middle, fancy dribbling a little dizzy, smoky makeup, hand cream, panic when playing basketball, overalls, height shoes, a bow at the waist, can sing. Can dance, can't tell male from female. Okay, this is the poem. The woman, Master, you're so strong, everyone, Master, you're amazing, Master, you're amazing, Master Jean Dang laughed. I've summed up the current situation of boys becoming idols. I reckon that your son shouldn't be very old, and this is the best age for him to study. If he studies hard and attentively, he's bound to have a great career in the future. As a person, one should always be down to earth. Chapter 970. Liang Hing received another video, but this time, it was accompanied by a very official-looking notice. The notice was as follows: Dear user, thank you for ordering the curse service again. This time, the curse service is a medium curse service. Because the curse process was obstructed by someone, it has not been completed. According to the curse service regulations, the curse service wouldn't be refunded if there was an obstruction in the middle of the process, unless the caster was hit by an earthquake, a tsunami, or some other force majeure. Liang Heng, this was a little unfair. Liang Heng opened the video and found that the new video this time was often extremely short, even shorter than the videos uploaded by the Upmaster of Bilibili, the world's largest pigeon breeding site. And most importantly, in order to make up for the length of the video this time, there was even a freaking opening and ending. This video was of Father Chen taking care of Super Chen, and then carrying him to the children's hospital. The video stopped abruptly at the hospital, and turned into a small, unreadable snowflake. Someone obstructed the curse. Liang Heng checked the notice on the software repeatedly. He had inadvertently obtained the curse software from Zhu Gu, and his first experiment had been very successful. How could the other party have sensed it? Could it be that an expert had helped him? Liang Heng thought of this possibility. At that moment, the software's prompt sounded. This was the second notice from the curse software, which said, considering the strength of the person who has dispelled the curse, it is recommended that you use an advanced curse or a set curse. Liang Heng, dear, do you want a card? Add up 10 years of your lifespan to become a member, and you can enjoy a 20% discount. Liang Heng, 10 years, only 20%, this is a discount for primary members. Dear, you can also consider adding up for 50 years. This is the price of the highest diamond membership. You can enjoy a 50% discount. Furthermore, we'll throw in a special curse service. This special curse service will make a person forever play basketball like. Wasn't this a little too vicious? Although the system notice didn't directly mention a name, Liang Heng could already guess who it was. To be honest, Liang Heng was a little tempted by such a vicious special service. But not everyone could take 50 years of their lifespan in one go. Liang Heng had previously calculated his lifespan, and he could live up to 200 years. Now, including the lifespan he had used in the curse software, he only had about 100 years left. The first time, Liang Heng had lost a year of his lifespan, which made him feel a sense of fatigue. The second time, Liang Heng had lost 5 years of his lifespan, and his hair had turned white overnight. These were all stress reactions after his lifespan was absorbed. If 50 years were taken away in one go, he would probably not be able to move anymore, Liang Heng was worried. Suddenly, he thought of the more vicious method he had thought of before, and that was to ask his students for help. The students didn't know about the curse software anyway. All he had to do was use some tricks to trick them into clicking the mouse. Crowdfunding longevity. Liang Heng confirmed his next plan. Elsewhere, Super Chen felt a little bored as he cultivated in the monastery. He didn't even know why he had come here to cultivate, and when he woke up, he was already in the temple. After the consecration was undone, the memory before and after the fever would be affected, and it might cause amnesia. Master Jin Dang had already spoken to Father Chen about this. But amnesia was one thing, it wasn't harmful to the body. But Super Chen still wanted to figure out what on earth had happened last night. Xiaoling's mom had told him that he had had a terrible fever, but she hadn't said a single thing about the specifics, which made Super Chen feel very aggrieved. Bringing him to the Zen temple in one fell swoop without anything on him. Even if he could spend his energy on cultivation during the day, he felt that he would really die at night without an e-book, a game console, or Wi-Fi. How could modern people survive without Wi-Fi? Wang Xiaoling followed him without saying a word. Super Chen knew that Wang Xiaoling had a rough idea of what had happened. But the problem was that Wang Xiaoling couldn't speak, and couldn't even recognize all the words. It was probably impossible for her to write them down. At that moment, Super Chen thought of an idea. Draw and I'll guess. If she couldn't write, she could draw, right? So, Super Chen found a pen and paper, found an empty space in the backyard, and started to play this game with Wang Xiaoling. Super Chen said to Xiaoling, "Xiaoling, let's play, you draw and I'll guess. Draw what happened yesterday and tell me. If I guess right, you nod, and if I guess wrong, you shake your head." Wang Xiaoling nodded. She drew several pictures in a row, and then labeled them with numbers. The first picture was the logo of Balance Magic Center. Wang Xiaoling wanted to tell Super Chen that it was all because of the curse of the director of Balance Magic Center. Wang Xiaoling didn't know about this at first, but last night, in order to convince her mother to come to the monastery with them, Father Chen told her everything from the beginning to the end. On the side, Xiaoling also heard it quietly. In the second picture, Wang Xiaoling drew a picture of a flame. She wanted to tell Super Chen that he had a fever last night. In the third picture, there was a hospital cross. To show that this was a hospital. Wang Xiaoling even added 120 next to the cross. In the fourth picture, Wang Xiaoling drew a bald head wearing a red boxing glove who smashed a skull. The skull represented the curse, and the bald head represented Master Jin Dang, who had blessed Super Chen with light. Super Chen was stunned by such a clear composition and logical drawing line. He had never expected Xiaoling to actually have a talent for drawing. In the fourth picture, wasn't this teacher Saitama's fight with the Bone King? At this point, the drawing was complete. Wang Xiaoling put down her pen and felt relieved. She was actually very confident in her drawing ability because she couldn't speak. At the garbage station, she often used the discarded pens that other people had thrown away to study her drawing skills. But Wang Xiaoling wasn't sure whether Super Chen had understood it or not, staring at the 4 pictures. Super Chen first praised Wang Xiaoling for a long time, then laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. Xiaoling, I didn't expect you to draw so well. After looking at these 4 pictures, I understand everything. Your first and second pictures told me that Balance Magic Center was on fire. My dad called 120. The reason for the fire was that there were weapons of mass destruction hidden in Balance Magic Center. But that director Liang refused to admit it. In the end, for some reason, an eminent monk in this monastery made a move and blew up the weapon with one punch. As soon as Super Chen finished speaking. In the distance, in the direction of Balance Magic Center, there was a boom. A mushroom cloud rose from the ground. Chapter 971. That night, the news of the big explosion at Balance Magic Center spread like wildfire. Liang Heng was getting his just desserts. Father Chen didn't know what had happened, but he felt strangely relieved. Oh my God, you don't know what a huge mushroom cloud it was. Luckily, there was no one around, otherwise it would have been terrible. How did it explode? I heard it was a laptop that exploded. The batteries made in Bowen overheated and exploded. Then how did a mushroom cloud appear? There are some laptops on the market now that are manufactured according to Magic Treasure configurations. They all use spirit cores to generate electricity, and can last for decades without needing to be recharged. But Chief Liang's laptop seems to have hit the jackpot. There was a problem with the quality of the spirit cores, and it was recalled. Chief Liang might have been too busy to pay attention, and now it exploded. Spirit cores themselves were energy crystals made from highly dense spirit power molecules. The principle was similar to that of General Yi's Palm Sword and the Old Devil's Chaos Ball, which used techniques to compress spirit power. But the fact that this kind of technology could be put on the market proved that it was already very sophisticated. Generally speaking, there was a 99% chance that it wouldn't explode, which was equivalent to a plane crash, or winning the lottery. So, Chief Liang had hit the jackpot. Furthermore, he had hit the jackpot. Through Wang Xiaoling's eyes, Wang Ling witnessed Super Chen's memory. Wang Ling remembered that there had indeed been this piece of news back then, but he never thought that the big explosion back then would actually be because Super Chen had blessed his mouth. It had to be said that this Master Jin Deng was a little strong. He had only blessed his entire body once, but he could actually do this. There were a lot of strange things in the world to begin with, and Wang Ling felt that taking himself as an example, was there anything more bizarre than being born invincible? It could only be said that Master Jin Deng was an enigmatic and eccentric person with lofty ideas. Given Master Jin Deng's methods and abilities, Wang Ling felt that as long as the other party wanted to, it shouldn't be difficult for him to establish himself in the cultivation world. But in the end, he still ran his shabby Zen temple, used his wisdom to enlighten others, and lived a low-key and ordinary life. This kind of realm was worth learning from. After returning from meditation in the monastery, Father Chen asked a few students about Liang Heng. Apparently, Liang Heng was in a very miserable state. He had been right in the middle of the explosion, and his body was burned to an extent of 85%. A naughty parent who taught his own child fireball skills to bully others, but in the end, he was injured by a huge mushroom bomb. It was a tragic ending. After the explosion, the residents of the entire street were alarmed and came to put out the fire. Every household sent out water talismans through the air, and it was the annual drama of Jinshan being flooded. Later, the nearby fire department and ambulance arrived in time, and the fire was completely under control. Liang Heng was also rescued. Chief Liang is so tragic. In class that day, a student told Father Chen about Chief Liang with lingering fear. He had already visited him, so he knew Liang Heng's situation better. Actually, the main reason for the visit wasn't because they cared about Liang Heng, but because the students were more curious about the extent of Director Liang's burns. Chief Liang. How's the situation? Father Chen said, "I'm wondering if I should bring a fruit basket to visit him." No matter how bad Liang Heng was, he was still a senior brother from the same sect. Besides, he had suffered retribution this time, and Father Chen felt that it would be very difficult for him to stir up trouble again. "Teacher Chen, it's better if you don't bring anything. I also brought a fruit basket yesterday, but when I got there, I realized that he couldn't eat it at all." Chief Liang's entire body had been burned to a mummy, that's right. The doctor said that for some reason, Chief Liang's organs had aged very badly. Otherwise, his injuries might have been lighter. I went over to take a look after the explosion. When Chief Liang was carried into the car, it seemed like all his nails had been burned away. "You really looked carefully, you're staring at my crotch." Chief Liang has been saved now, but he'll still be disabled in the future. His organs were so badly damaged that they were all artificial. Medical insurance can't cover all of this, and it'll probably take a lot of time for Chief Liang to pay off his medical bills later. Father Chen didn't sleep very late that night. After thinking for a long time, he still decided to raise some donations for Liang Heng on the cultivation forum. Liang Heng had already suffered retribution, but his wife and child shouldn't be implicated. When Father Chen saw in his WeChat moments that Liang Heng's wife was arranging to sell the property, he couldn't bear to do it. Liang Heng's medical bills were sky high. Even if he sold all the money he had earned from taking in students over the past few years and all his property, it still wouldn't be enough. If he tried to get insurance from the computer company to settle the claims, they would have done a recall before. From a legal perspective, it wasn't like the computer company hadn't paid attention to this batch of problematic products. The Liang family is going to have a hard time in the future. Father Chen sighed. Watching his rival of many years collapse just like that, about to die of old age and the wind, Father Chen actually felt a little emotional in his heart. It was impossible for him to donate money himself. But he could still do it for humanitarian reasons. "Dad, are you really going to help him?" Super Chen didn't quite understand Father Chen's behavior. "He just likes to compete with me, but he's become a little obsessed these past few years. Back when he was still in school, he was very competitive. But his nature isn't bad." Father Chen recalled the past and said thoughtfully, "Son, you'll understand when you go to school in the future. School days are short, but they're also very beautiful. But I heard from my brothers that school is tiring, and there's endless homework. That's just one side of it. When you and Shaolin go to school in the future, you'll understand that school days are the happiest. A lot of people don't think about school until they have a job. But I heard that Chief Liang is going to die soon. Donating this money won't help, right?" Super Chen said. "He's already been saved. Although he's still in critical condition, it's not a big problem." Saying this, Father Chen suddenly remembered the brocade pouch that Master Jin Dang had given him when he left the monastery. Father Chen still remembered what Master Jin Dang had said back then. He said that Super Chen would encounter a calamity when he was 16. Choose the right school for Super Chen, and he would be able to survive this calamity. Master then gave him a brocade pouch and told him to open it when he got home. "What's written in the brocade pouch?" "Don't worry." Father Chen opened the brocade pouch and took a look. "Master has chosen a high school for you. When you're in high school, go to this school. It's already late, go to bed first. I'm going to write a donation post for Chief Liang." Oh, Father Chen spent about half an hour editing the post, and was just about to send it out when, in the university class group chat, which had been silent for a long time, an announcement suddenly popped up. "Deep condolences, classmate Liang Heng has passed away." Father Chen was startled. "Wasn't he already saved?" Someone in the know replied, "We just confirmed it with the hospital. The infection was very serious, and he wasn't out of danger yet." Sigh. Looking at the message in the group, Father Chen turned to look at Super Chen's bedroom. For some reason, he felt a chill. Chapter 972. After returning from Super Chen's memory, Wang Ling sat at his desk and was lost in thought for a long time. This was what he had written in his conclusion to Super Chen's essay. When we were young, we might have hesitated and felt helpless, but in the end, we still grow up. When you don't know how to choose the right path, then become a man of indomitable spirit. Standing on the top of the mountain, you look so dazzling in the sunlight, it's like you've been blessed. It was September 6th, the 24th day of the summer break. The day of establishing diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials was drawing near. During this time, someone had become popular, and that was the scientist Guo Ping, who had disappeared on an exploration mission on Divine Dao Star and had come back to life. And now, Guo Ping had become the ambassador for establishing diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials, and was responsible for establishing diplomatic relations between the entire cultivation world and extraterrestrial life in the universe. Dopey Guo was overjoyed. This time, the Guo family had really produced an extraordinary big shot. Among Dopey Guo's many uncles, it was clear that Guo Ping had become the strongest uncle in a single leap. This was indeed a great surprise for Dopey Guo. After his last trip to Divine Dao Star, Wang Ling had replaced everyone's memories in number 60 high school, so Dopey Guo had no impression of this Uncle Guo at all. In his memory, he was just an ordinary game NPC. Holy shit! Would you believe me if I told you that Guo Ping is actually my uncle? Dopey Guo sent a surprised emoji in the small WeChat group. I believe you. But why didn't you send it in the class group? There are so many people in the class group. Super Chen was amused. Then it's better to keep a low profile. You're all my bros, so don't worry. As for the others, they might not believe me. Said Dopey Guo. Where there were people, there was jealousy. Dopey Guo had thought it over and over again before he didn't brag about the fact that Guo Ping was his uncle. It was good for both him and Guo Ping. If word of this got out, people might think that he was bragging. What if some teacher got serious and asked him to invite Guo Ping to the school to give a speech? That would really be terrible. In fact, Dopey Guo was very self-aware. While it was true that Guo Ping was his uncle by blood, the problem was that their relationship wasn't so good that he could come and go as he pleased. Are you familiar with Guo Ping? Little Peanut asked at that moment. Dopey Guo said, I'm not familiar with them, but I think my dad is. There should be a way to contact him on the phone. There was a WeChat group of the Guo group, and Uncle Guo Ping was in it. But that group has been quiet for a long time. I've changed my phone. If no one leaves a message in the group, I might not be able to find it. Super Chin, when I saw your uncle on TV before, I felt like I had an affinity with him. I think I've seen him somewhere before. He looks like an NPC in a game. Wang Ling, Dopey Guo, Wang Ling, you're peeping again. Super Chin laughed. Isn't he just like that? Is this the first day you met him? They discussed Guo Ping's matter in the group until noon. It couldn't be helped. As the ambassador of peace, Guo Ping's popularity had dominated the headlines for the past few days. Not only that, the entire cultivation world was connected to extraterrestrial life in the universe, and more extraterrestrial life came to light thanks to the information provided by Divine Dao Star. Of course, the information on the internet was only a portion of the public data. It didn't even have 5%. Previously, Divine Dao Star had tyrannically invaded and expanded in the universe, annexing more than 90% of the planets with intelligent life forms. But the Divine Dragons never expected that they would lose to Earth in the end. On the same night that they were talking about Guo Ping in the group, someone arrived at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. Dog 2 was lying on its stomach at the entrance. When it looked up, it saw a man whose face was covered and who was wrapped up very tightly, walking toward the entrance in a very low-key manner with his hands in his pockets. Who are you? Dog 2 got up and spoke straight away. Although it didn't sense any hostility from this person, it still maintained a certain degree of vigilance. You can actually speak without taking human form. Hearing Dog 2 speak human language, the newcomer was dazed at first. He then took off his sunglasses, mask, sun hat, overcoat, and the gauze wrapped around his body. Finally, he peeled off a layer of skin from his face and pulled it off abruptly. This skin was a face-changing mask. There were ready-made ones on the market, and they could also be customized. There were all kinds of celebrity styles. When using it, it was like applying a facial mask. After applying it on your face for 5 minutes, the face-changing mask would change your appearance to that of the person you wanted. However, the purchase of a face-changing mask required a real name registration and a record to prevent people from using the mask to carry out illegal transactions. Huaxiao Alliance also strictly monitored the production rights of face-changing masks. Illegal production of face-changing masks was a very serious crime. If you were caught and sentenced, you would be sentenced to at least 500 years. Dog 2 stared blankly at the entrance. This person spent a full 5 minutes at the entrance to take off all his disguise. From head to toe, even his leg hair was fully covered. When he appeared in person, Dog 2 was instantly enlightened. It had actually seen this uncle before. That was nonsense. It was impossible that it hadn't seen him before. He had been so popular on TV these 2 days. Hello, I'm Guoping. The middle-aged uncle introduced himself. Ask him what he's doing here. On the second floor, Wang Ling spoke telepathically to Dog 2 in the bedroom. He hadn't expected Guoping to come to the villa in the afternoon after the chat group had started talking about him in the morning. Wang Ling felt that this was a little strange. He remembered that he should have already replaced Guoping's memories, although he had indeed made a move on Divine Dao Star. But now that his memories had been replaced, Guoping knew that the person who had fought the most fiercely was Bai Qiao. Logically speaking, after Wang Ling's memories had been replaced, he should have been invisible. Why had Guoping suddenly come knocking on his door? I'm here to see Ling Jinren, Guoping replied. No, my master is doing homework, he's very busy, said Dog 2. Then I'll help him with it, Guoping said with a smile. Dog 2, shock. Guoping, the famous academician of Huaxiao Nation's Magic Treasure Research Academy and currently the hottest ambassador for establishing diplomatic relations and peace in the universe, was actually helping a high school student do his homework. Was this a distortion of human nature or a loss of morality? You don't have to reject me like that. Wang Ming, that guy already told me, and I also helped him upgrade the Dao Talisman back then. I just wanted to thank Ling Jinren this time. Guoping smiled helplessly. Thank you. That's right, Wang Ming said that it was Ling Jinren who provided the energy thread that allowed me to fly in space for so long back then. If it wasn't for Ling Jinren, I might still be floating in space. iShang Mobile Reading URL. Chapter 973. Guoping had arrived just in time. This was the usual time for dinner. Although Guoping had come uninvited, he was, after all, a big shot who no one dared to approach nowadays. What Wang Ling hadn't expected was that Guoping had actually contributed to the research on upgrading the Dao Talisman. He had long since known that even President Qi, who was as close to Wang Ming as his own father, had been kept in the dark about the talisman seal. Mother Wang was a little flattered. Teacher Guo, why did you come to our house today? It's nothing, my nephew is Wang Ling's classmate. He's taken care of a lot by classmate Wang Ling, so I'm here today to see classmate Wang Ling and freeload a meal, Guoping said. Mother Wang was stupefied when she heard this. This teacher Guo was very friendly. But the Wang family had always been hospitable, and there was naturally no reason to refuse him, so Mother Wang could only ask Guoping to stay for dinner. The old man had invented a new dish, and when he saw the celebrity who had appeared on TV these days visiting the villa, his face lit up. Teacher Guo, you came just in time. You must try tonight's new dish. I've heard that the old man's cooking is superb. I definitely won't stand on ceremony, Guo Ping said politely. Teacher Guo, you flatter me. My new dish tonight is a pastry made from chilled red bayberries. After separating the meat from the bayberries, I minced them, then stuffed them into flour balls and kneaded them into long fried dough twists, then deep-fried them at high temperature to make plum intestine pastry. It's full of twists and turns, and the aftertaste is endless. The old man couldn't stop talking when the new dish was mentioned. The old man is amazing. Guo Ping listened blankly, then laughed. Don't call me Teacher Guo, just call me Little Guo. Alright, Little Guo. Since you're here for Ling Ling, I'll call him down, said Mother Wang. No need to trouble yourself, Auntie, I'll go up myself, said Guo Ping. On the second floor, Wang Ling heard the conversation downstairs and sighed in his heart. This peaceful summer break was only halfway through, and in the end, there was this kind of trouble, but Guo Ping's appearance was even stranger to Wang Ling, because Wang Ming had never mentioned Guo Ping's involvement to him, not even the slightest bit. After all, making the talisman seal was a big deal. Wang Ling had already texted Wang Ming to ask about the situation, but Wang Ming still hadn't replied. Wang Ling suddenly missed that dumbass who had replied in seconds. Wang Ling didn't know what Guo Ping's personality was like, but after interacting with him for so long, he realized that Guo Ping was a very easygoing person who didn't treat him as an outsider at all. Guo Ping was very familiar with the way up to the second floor, as if he had already investigated beforehand and was very clear about the location of Wang Ling's bedroom. Guo Ping lightened his footsteps as he reached Father Wang's study. It was clear that Guo Ping was well aware of Father Wang's identity. It seemed that Wang Ming indeed hadn't told Guo Ping much about them. Guo Ping knocked on Wang Ling's bedroom door. However, there was no response at all. Then, he turned the doorknob again, and a human face suddenly appeared on the bedroom door. After Mother Wang had barged into his bedroom several times without knocking, he had already enchanted the door. And this new member was the door god. His full name was Nagato. It's not convenient for our master to receive guests today. If you insist on barging in, I'll have to use Shinra Tensei. This door of yours is interesting. Guo Ping smiled. Although he had been startled by the sudden voice of the door just now, he very quickly regained his composure. He was well aware of Wang Ling's secret, so he wasn't too surprised by the various anomalies happening in the Wang family's small villa. Guo Ping knew that Wang Ling was deliberately avoiding him, and felt that it was most likely because Wang Ming hadn't communicated with him beforehand. In the last 2 days, the entire research institute had been busy receiving aliens and analyzing space civilizations. Many of the research institute's fruitless research had unexpectedly made breakthroughs after combining the methods provided by some extraterrestrial civilizations. Because of this, Wang Ming had actually been using his brain a lot these 2 days. Guo Ping thought that the reason Wang Ling didn't want to see him at the villa was most likely because Wang Ming hadn't officially woken up yet. After using his brain too much, Wang Ming's fainting stress reaction was very strong, and it was often accompanied by a strong fever that sometimes reached 70 or 80 degrees. A normal person's brain would have long since been fried. So in order to prevent this from happening, Wang Ming had installed a cooling device in his head. Thus, while Wang Ming looked very hot on the surface, the temperature inside his skull was actually normal. Now that he couldn't get through the door, Guo Ping was a little anxious. Unable to find Wang Ming, he could only call Zhai Yin. Hello. Little Yin. Is Teacher Wang Ming awake? Not yet. On the other end of the line, Zhai Yin replied, the stress reaction this time is more serious, and he might need another day or so to cool down. Another day? It's already been several days, hasn't it? When I came to the Wang family's small villa before, he didn't help me greet him. His little brother isn't allowed in now. Did you bring crispy noodle snacks? No. Then I'm afraid you won't be able to get in today. How about this? I'll explain later. I know about this, and I'm more familiar with his little brother than you are. Alright, sorry to trouble little Ian. Are you cooking? I think I hear the sound of something frying. Frying steak, said Jia. Isn't the research institute not allowed to install gas? Guoping had a suspicious look on his face. Previously, Jia fried dragon pork chop had almost killed President Qi. Since that day, the research institute had banned all tools that could be used to cook. Simple gas, induction cookers, and microwave ovens were all banned. Even magic treasures that could generate heat and fire were strictly controlled by President Qi. Apart from designated personnel, they weren't allowed to be lent out, especially to Jia. Their research institute was in the field of science and technology, not biological and chemical weapons. The lethality of Jia's dragon pork chop could be said to be deeply in line with Mother Wan's charm. As for the specific reaction after eating it, only President Qi alone knew. Although Guoping had only just returned, he was already very familiar with Jia and her cooking. Currently, the Research Institute had laboratories from level 1 to 10, and the higher the level of isolation. The purpose of the laboratories was to prevent chemicals and special gases from leaking during the course of research. As for Jia's dragon pork chop, experiments had shown that a level 10 laboratory wouldn't be able to withstand it. It had to be at least level 11. Old Qi won't let me cook all this time, and my hands have been itching for a long time. Don't worry, I didn't use the gas or induction cooker. I just thought that Wang Ming's head was burning up quite hot this time, and it would be a pity not to use it. You're frying steak on a person's head. Guoping was horrified. It's already medium done, I'll give it to you when you come back. Do you want some black pepper? Jia replied. iShang Mobile Reading URL. Chapter 974. After the previous battle caused by Devil Gut Fungus Lord, brand new fortifications had been built on the border of Mishu Nation. Although Devil Gut Fungus Lord was already dead, the ecological environment on the border had been severely polluted because of him. This situation was like a nuclear leak, which was more troublesome to deal with and would take some time. Devil Gut Fungus Lord's death had also eliminated President Bai at the same time. President Bai had been devoured by Devil Gut Fungus Lord in his stomach, and was destroyed along with him. After the border defense base, which had been equipped with a purification device, this place had entered automatic cleaning mode, and no cultivators had set foot here again. Outside the high wall, a young figure appeared. He had a head of white hair and a mysterious smile on his face, and he was in high spirits. Mose reminds you that you can't enter this place. Please leave within 30 seconds. Otherwise, the alarm defense system will automatically be activated. Defense system. The white-haired young man smiled. The next moment, his pupils turned slightly, and a powerful wave of spirit power surged out, instantly burning a big hole in the high wall. Mose gave a weak electronic voice. Sure enough, it's always an extravagant wish for humans to maintain their rationality. This is the place. After entering, the young man's body floated in the air, and his gaze focused on a spot. This was the spot where Devil Gut Fungus Lord had been destroyed back then, and the aura here was the strongest. Come back to life. The young man opened his palm, and a pure white light enveloped the ground with a sizzling sound as it roasted it. Sizzling, sizzling. When Wang Ming woke up, he could clearly smell the aroma of black pepper beef, which went straight to his head and made him feel a little dizzy. That wasn't right. Why did it smell like steak? Just as he was about to get up, Jia pressed him down. Don't move. Wang Ming. Jia picked up the steak from Wang Ming's forehead, then poked it with a pair of tongs. Hey, this piece is only medium rare. Wang Ming was startled. So you're using my forehead as an induction cooker? I haven't cooked for a long time, old Qi wouldn't let me. Later, I found out that you'd passed out, so this is a useful resource. It'd be a pity not to use it. Jia pointed at her sister-in-law on the table, which was piled together with the steaks that had just been fried. I just fried more than 10 pieces, do you want to try them? Wang Ming wiped his sweat. You should keep this biochemical weapon for yourself, you have no taste. Jai Yin pursed her lips and put down the piece of beef. You need to pay attention to your rest. If your brain continues to overload like this, something bad will happen. Old Chi gave you half a month off and allowed you to walk around in plain clothes. Chi, Wang, and Chi, I know. Wang Ming nodded. What about the alien handover? Leave it to Elder Guo. After Elder Guo came back, several of his disciples also came back. They are very efficient. Qi, Zhai and Dao, Qi King Xing head Zan Xing, his head, Zhai Yin Qi Wang, Qi was Qi King's head. Wang Ming patted his head, he had almost forgotten about this. Wang Ming hadn't told Wang Ling about Guo Ping's involvement in the Dao Talisman research at all, and Wang Ming had his own reasons for this. The main reason he had gotten Guo Ping involved in the research back then was because of his analysis of the material used to make the Dao Talisman seal, which was the Wang Ling substance. Guo Ping had a unique train of thought when it came to analyzing the substance of this thing. Sometimes, scientific research was just like writing. It often lacked a unique idea and inspiration. I'll talk to old Guo about this later. Also, give me my dream restorer, Wang Ming said. The dream restorer was a magic treasure that Wang Ming had invented previously for fun. It could restore a person's dreams over a period of 24 hours. Dreams were intermittent memories, and people often forgot about them after waking up. It would be very convenient to have this dream restorer. Wang Ming would occasionally have some dreams where he bullied Wang Ling, and he would often restore them before recording and editing them. He didn't even need to add 50 cents in special effects to create a blockbuster movie. Did you dream about bullying your little brother again? Jai Yin chuckled. She was already used to this damned brother complex. In order to restore his dream of bullying his little brother, he had even created a dream restorer. Jai Yin swore that she had never seen someone more perverted than this brother complex. Aren't you a little unhappy that I dreamed about my little brother? Wang Ming raised his eyebrows. From now on, you don't need to add vinegar when you cook. What do you mean? Jai Yin glared at Wang Ming like a leopard staring at its prey. Wang Ming was instantly terrified. It's nothing, nowadays, everyone likes to eat lemons, it's normal to be a little sour. Well, you decide where to go tomorrow. I won't go to my little brother's place, it's about time. Jai Yin swept Wang Ming a glance, then took out a silk pouch and took out the dream restorer. As his bodyguard and assistant, Jai Yin already carried some magic treasures that Wang Ming often used with her. Jai Yin, you use it, I'll go figure out where to go tomorrow. Wang Ming, alright. The reason why he wanted to use the dream restorer today wasn't because of anything else, but because of the dream just now, which Wang Ming was very concerned about. The purification and defense base on Mishio Nation's border, and the white-haired youngster who had suddenly appeared in front of the base. Wang Ming could only vaguely remember these images. After Devil Gut Fungus Lord's destruction, Wang Ming actually knew about Mishio Nation's defense base. Previously, Mishio's research cooperation team had even come to ask them about the design drawings. But Wang Ming had never been to this border defense base even once. But now, a complete base had actually appeared in his dream, and everything seemed so real. This made Wang Ming feel a little uneasy. He couldn't forget the smile of the white-haired youngster in his dream. Furthermore, he always felt that the youngster seemed a little familiar, so strange. Wang Ming frowned, he had never had such an odd dream before. When he put on the helmet of the dream restorer, the dream he had when he had been unconscious reappeared. He saw the defense base with its towering walls, which were like the Great Wall. He also saw the white-haired youngster in his dream, who gave him a familiar yet strange feeling. At that moment, the youngster turned his head and smiled at him. He had the same face as Wang Ling's. Chapter 975. It was a face identical to Wang Ling's. Wang Ming was lost in deep thought at this. He couldn't be more familiar with this face, but there was also something about it that he wasn't familiar with. The youngster had snow-white hair and a smile that was very rare to see on Wang Ling. This definitely wasn't the Wang Ling Wang Ming was familiar with. Was someone imitating his younger brother's face? Or was this dream a foreshadowing of something? Wang Ming felt that there was something strange about the whole thing. What's wrong? When Jai Yin came back, she noticed that Wang Ming's expression was a little ugly. It's nothing. Wang Ming shook his head and looked at Jai Yin. Get in touch with Roger and ask him if Mishio Nation's border base has suffered any attacks. All right. Jai Yin nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Roger was a foreign friend of Wang Ming's at Mishio's Magic Treasure Research Institute, and he had a very close relationship with Wang Ming himself. It was Roger who had taken the initiative to discuss the details of the design drawings for Mishio's border defense base this time. It was also Roger who had named the artificial intelligence robot Mose for the entire border defense system. Although Guo Ping had eaten at the Wang family's small villa, he hadn't said much to Wang Ling in the end. Wang Ling didn't know anything about Guo Ping at all. Before Wang Ming could explain it clearly, he chose to remain silent as usual, and when he did open his mouth, he was a man of few words. At the dinner table, Guo Ping praised him. Classmate Wang Ling has quite a character, I like it. Wang Ling, father and mother Wang, Guo Ping, my nephew seems to be on good terms with you. Wang Ling, father and mother Wang, Guo Ping, classmate Wang Ling is really a man of few words. Do you have anything else to say besides Wang Ling, oh. Father and mother Wang Ling had always maintained a deadpan attitude toward people he didn't know well. Father and mother Wang had specifically mentioned this before, and they felt that it was actually very rude of their son to act like this. But over time, they had gotten used to it. After all, as a Capricorn, it was indeed very hard for Wang Ling to warm up to people he didn't know. But Guo Ping's personality was the exact opposite of Wang Ling's. He was naturally friendly and enthusiastic about everything. This personality was in stark contrast to Wang Ling's, and for a moment, Wang Ling felt a little at a loss. Before he left, Guo Ping received a reply from Wang Ming. At that moment, Wang Ming had already woken up after Roger had verified the relevant information on the border. Wang Ming knew that Guo Ping was still at the Wang family's small villa. Given Wang Ling's personality, Guo Ping's visit at this time would definitely be met with a cold shoulder. Wang Ming knew his brother's personality too well, so he apologized to Guo Ping and took the blame. It wasn't that he was deliberately trying to protect Wang Ling. It was mainly because he hadn't communicated with Wang Ling properly this time. Guo Ping didn't mind. He had come here shamelessly, mainly to test Wang Ling's strength. Although he hadn't spoken much to Wang Ling, he had gained a preliminary understanding of him. He looked like an ordinary high school student, but he wasn't ordinary at all. When they left, Guo Ping greeted Wang Ling, classmate Wang Ling, do you want to go to the noodle house tomorrow? That noodle restaurant serves instant fried crispy noodle snacks. This time, he finally said a third word besides N and O. Wang Ling, okay. Guo Ping was startled. He had asked so many questions before, but this guy had always looked disinterested. In the end, at the mention of crispy noodle snacks, it felt like nuclear bombs could be placed in Wang Ling's pupils. Was this some kind of red packet password? The noodle house that Wang Ming had arranged for Guo Ping and Wang Ling to meet was actually nowhere else. Number 3600 Spirit Creek Road was where Wang Ling had killed the sky-swallowing toad at the age of 6, and where the Crispy Noodle Snacks flagship store had opened back then. Fang Xing's family's noodle house was right next to this flagship store. When Wang Ling had killed the sky-swallowing toad back then, Fang Xing had been the first witness. Although Fong Xing had always invited him, Wang Ling had never been to his family's noodle house. It just so happened that it was the summer break. After writing Super Chen's personal essay, Wang Ling felt that it was time for him to go out and look for inspiration before continuing to write another personal essay. It was September 7th, the 25th day of the summer break. Early in the morning, Wang Ling hurried in the direction of Fong Xing's house with Loopy Toad on its leash. Why did he want to take Loopy Toad with him? After all, Wang Ling had been traumatized when Dog 2 had fallen from the sky back then. Dog 2 actually felt very wronged in its heart. How was this a psychological trauma that it had caused? Even if it had, was it bigger than Wang Ling's? It had been killed 3 times in a row. 3 times. And in the end, even its species had changed. Fong Xing had been fostered in the Fong family, and their adoptive parents were a pair of good people. Not only had they raised Fong Xing, they had also run a pretty big noodle house. Wang Ling heard that the Fong couple's noodle house was going to open a chain store very soon. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad stood on this bustling commercial street on Spirit Creek Road. Right in front of them was the century-old Crispy Noodle Snacks flagship store, and on the side was Fong Xing's family's noodle house. In the middle of the entire commercial street was a life-size bronze statue of Audiobook. This bronze statue was made up of 2 parts, one was Audiobook, and the other was Dog 2's original sky-swallowing toad form. This bronze statue had been made to commemorate Audiobook's great achievement 6 years ago. As for how Audiobook had defeated Dog 2 back then, apart from Fong Xing, there had actually been no witnesses. Thus, the artist who had designed the bronze statue had started to fill in the blanks. He had carved Audiobook very handsomely, holding a very exaggerated spirit sword in his hand as he faced Dog 2's sky-swallowing toad statue with a heroic expression on his face. Wang Ling held Loopy Toad's hand and stared at it for a long time. Dozens of seconds later, the bronze statue actually started to move on its own. Both master and servant were shocked. This bronze statue could actually move. Audiobook stabbed Loopy Toad's stomach with the sword, and then the statue started to spray water from its mouth, which splashed beautifully onto the green belt on the side. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad, and that wasn't the most insane thing. At the base of the bronze statue was a circulation device. The soil used to grow plants was artificial spirit soil. After absorbing excess water, it would drain it out, and the extra water would then be sucked back into the bronze statue's stomach through the circulation device for reuse. Every 5 minutes, Loopy Toad would be stabbed. In front of the bronze statue, Loopy Toad rubbed its stomach and inexplicably felt an abdominal pain. Tianjin. Chapter 976. When Wang Ling led Dog 2 in, Guo Ping and Wang Ming were drinking tea inside. The LCD screen at the entrance of the noodle shop said, "Closed." Knowing that Wang Ling was coming today, Fong Xing had discussed with his adoptive parents last night to close the noodle shop. Actually, this wasn't just because of Wang Ling, but also because of Guo Ping and Wang Ming's identities. Needless to say, Wang Ming was a panda in the research institute, and President Qi usually wouldn't let anyone show his face. Academician Guo Ping was even more so the big shot who had been the hottest topic on the internet in the last 2 days, an alien diplomat and cosmic peace ambassador. The visit of these 2 people was enough to shut down the noodle shop. Of course, for Fong Xing, the most important person was still Wang Ling. He knew that Wang Ling didn't like to deal with strangers. Fong Xing had invited him so many times, and now that Wang Ling had finally come, Fong Xing naturally had to take care of Ling Zhenren's feelings in all aspects. That was right, after saying so much, in the end, it was all for classmate Wang Ling. Entering with Dog 2, Wang Ling realized that the restaurant's decor was a little familiar. The kitchen was right in the middle of the restaurant, with several pots on it, and all the cooking was done right under people's noses. At the back of the noodle shop were the food and ingredients rooms. All the fresh ingredients were replenished and replaced every day, and there were cameras in the back to make the entire environment public and transparent, giving customers a sense of security when eating. Although this was Wang Ling's first time at the Fong family's noodle shop, he knew that it had a very high rating online. It was ranked first in the fabric management area. This wasn't something that an ordinary noodle shop could do. "You're here, Wang Ling." Wang Ling took Dog 2 to one side, and saw Fong Xing come out of the ingredients room. He was wearing a mask, a chef's hat, and a white apron. "Do you know, you look like someone's wife today." Wang Ming laughed. Fong Xing clearly hadn't been dressed like this when he had first arrived. "My parents said they wouldn't be coming today, so I had to do it myself," Fong Xing said with a shrug. "Did they really not come, or did you send them away?" Wang Ming laughed. Guo Ping looked at him, then swept his gaze over Wang Ling with the expression of an old uncle who knew very well. "You can interpret it however you want. My parents are outsiders, so we can talk about me more freely without them around." Fong Xing smiled brightly. "In any case, I'm the chef today. Eat if you want." "Eat? How can you not eat?" Wang Ming was very supportive. The reason was that he thought of the steaks that Jai Yin fried on his forehead when he was unconscious yesterday. It was said that when the steaks were thrown into the chemical treatment station last night, they almost burned a big hole in the chemical protection wall of the treatment station. Compared with Mother Wan's cooking, Jai Yin's cooking also had its own unique characteristic, and that was the delayed poison reaction. Mother Wan's food would immediately explode. On the other hand, Jai Yin's pills didn't seem to have any poison, and there didn't seem to be any problems after eating them. However, the poison would slowly take effect after a few hours. That was the scariest part. Then it settled. "I'll go buy crude oil." Fong Xing untied his apron and smiled. "Crude? It's a special type of oil that must be used to fry crispy noodle snacks. You need to buy it from a designated shop, but the shop isn't responsible for delivering it. When I checked the ingredients room just now, I found that the crude oil has been used up." Fong Xing smiled at Wang Ling, then untied his apron. "Also, you can order whatever noodles you want on the menu. If you don't have enough ingredients, I can buy more on this trip." "Then I'll have spirit rhino milk noodles," Guo Ping said. "Dog 2, I want big meat fly noodles." "Wang Ming, I want chicken your 2 beautiful noodles." Wang Ling, "Alright, I got it." Fong Xing smiled. He didn't ask Wang Ling what he wanted to eat. In any case, he just needed to prepare a portion of every crispy noodle snack flavor. "You guys chat first, I'll be back in a bit." Fong Xing said goodbye to Guo Ping and Wang Ming, then untied his apron and left the noodle shop. After Fong Xing left, the noodle shop gradually quieted down. Wang Ming thought for a bit, then decided to introduce Guo Ping first. He knew that Guo Ping's visit to the Wang family's villa last night had been a little awkward. "Ling Ling, let me introduce you to Professor Guo Ping again," Wang Ming said. Wang Ling stared at Guo Ping with an expression that he was seeing him for the first time. Professor Guo has indeed been involved in a small part of the Dao Talisman research. But this small part is also a key part, so I think we'll need Professor Guo's continued help in the follow-up research on Dao Talismans, Wang Ming said. To be honest, with Guo Ping's help previously, Wang Ling's research had gone very smoothly. But after Guo Ping's death, his research had hit all kinds of bottlenecks. Wang Ming indeed had the strongest brain, but sometimes that didn't mean he could completely do without the help of a team. Guo Ping could be considered the first partner Wang Ming had acknowledged in scientific research. Now that things had come to this, Wang Ling naturally had no objections. Guo Ping didn't have a bad heart, Wang Ling could see that. "Why do you look like you're sighing?" Dog 2 asked at that moment. The addition of a new partner should have been a happy occasion. Guo Ping and Wang Ming looked at each other, and after confirming the look in their eyes, Guo Ping frowned and said, "It's like this, last night, Wang Ming received news that a big hole had mysteriously appeared in Mixiu Nation's newly built border defense barrier. A big hole. That's right. Furthermore, this big hole was clearly man-made. The AI robot Mo's guarding it was also completely destroyed, but it wasn't able to send out any alarms before it was discovered. This proves that the person did things cleanly and efficiently, Wang Ming continued. In fact, the destruction of the border defense barrier was just one of many things. After a pause, Wang Ming continued, although there's no substantial evidence at the moment, I'm guessing that Devil Gut Fungus Lord and President Bai Zhe, who were previously confirmed dead, have probably been resurrected. Resurrected. Hearing this, Wang Ling fell silent. The method of resurrection was one of the 3,000 great spells to begin with, but Wang Ling had never used it because it would destroy the order of life. The problem was that if someone had used Heavenly Tao to resurrect, he should have sensed it. However, there hadn't been the slightest hint that this had happened yesterday. It was clear that the technique this person had used wasn't Heavenly Tao, Outer Tao, or even Divine Tao. Resurrecting Devil Gut Fungus Lord and the others, what was this person's purpose? It couldn't be to cure constipation. Chapter 977. It didn't matter who that youngster was or what his purpose was. The resurrection of President Bai and Devil Gut Fungus Lord was a big deal in itself. These were two very troublesome enemies. Devil Gut Fungus Lord would continue to grow stronger over time, while President Bai had a terrifying self-recovery ability. If these two people were resurrected, he would have to slap them a few more times. How tiring! Wang Ling sighed in his heart. So, to prevent this from happening, the best option was to keep these two guys in the cradle from the very beginning. So, if he wanted to find clues on these two people, the mysterious youngster with the special power was currently the only clue. Are there any leads on that youngster? Wang Ling asked. This time, Wang Ling didn't use telepathy, and instead chose to speak, which was a rare sight. This proved that he also attached great importance to this matter. Furthermore, since Guo Ping had already joined them, there were no outsiders in this noodle house. Wang Ling rarely spoke, but when he spoke, Wang Ming, Guo Ping and Dog 2 on the ground immediately got goosebumps all over. It was a pity that he didn't become a voice actor with this voice. Su Shangqing. Guo Ping raised his eyebrows. Actually, Guo Ping was also a fanatical ACG fan, and he was quite familiar with voice actors. But he felt that Wang Ling's voice was a little similar to that of a CV called Su Shangqing. Su Shangqing. He's done voice acting for the story of Choosing Heaven, Battle Through the Heavens, and my eldest senior brother has a hole in the brain. Most importantly, he's going to do voice acting for the daily life of the immortal king. I see. Wang Ming had a puzzled expression on his face. Wang Ling, returning to the topic, Guo Ping began to talk about some of the information he had gathered last night. These were all the results of Roger's analysis from Mixiu Nation's Research Institute. Mo's didn't leave behind any substantial evidence before it was destroyed, and didn't even get a picture of the youngster's face. Guo Ping said unhurriedly, but based on the big hole in the border defense base, the intruder wasn't very old, and was about 178 centimeters tall. We have a complete set of magic artifacts that can restore and analyze spells, and thus determine the angle at which the attacker raised his hand when casting the spell. A spellcaster usually doesn't cast the spell in a very exaggerated manner, and basically can't exceed the shoulder. And judging from the footprints left at the scene, the caster is extremely confident in his own magic attack, and his whole body is extremely close to the destroyed location. And this will prove two things. 1. The spellcaster has the ability to accurately judge spells. He will make sure that the position he is standing in will not hurt himself. However, based on the degree of damage to the wall, the power of that blow was especially strong. That's why I think the second possibility might be more likely. That is, this person is completely unafraid of magic damage and is especially conceited. Such a conceited person would usually try to be as pretentious as possible when casting spells. They would never cast spells with overly large postures because it would affect their beauty. Wang Ling and Dog 2 on the ground were stunned by Guo Ping's analysis. Have you studied criminal psychology? Buttface couldn't help but ask. A little, but most of the situation is just based on scientific inference. Guo Ping said, based on the above information, I calculated this person's height. As for his age, it was also based on the information Roger sent me. The spirit power molecules left at the scene were relatively young, so considering that the other party should be about the same age as you, Wang Ling, ? Wang Ling frowned. About the same age as him, could it be that there was another cultivation genius hidden in the world? Guo Ping's analysis was clear and logical, and this information was the same as what Wang Ming had seen in his dream. Although Wang Ming still couldn't quite believe it, basically all the information now matched up with his dream. For the time being, Wang Ming hadn't shared this with anyone else. But now, he felt that he had to say it. I have something to tell you about my dream last night. Wang Ming raised his head with a complicated expression on his face. Elsewhere, Fang Xing ran into some problems on his way out to buy ingredients. He had used his foster parents' new Benqi sword to buy groceries. He had just picked it up from the Benqi 4S shop yesterday, but it had started leaking spirit power halfway through the journey. Nowadays, imported industrialized products weren't reliable either. What AF * king scam? Fang Xing remembered that his adoptive parents had been forced to pay a financial service fee in order to buy this spirit sword. Yesterday, he had heard them complain about how the service staff's attitude had been like a storm before and after they paid, and how they changed their attitudes faster than one could flip a book. There was a saying, with Benqi in hand, the world is mine. It's hard to move an inch for more than 600,000. Halfway through the journey, the spirit power leaked. Financial service, cash payment, after-sales service, basically nothing. Now that the spirit power had leaked, Fang Xing had no choice but to stop flying and walk to his destination. He didn't have a spare spirit sword on him, but fortunately, he wasn't far from his destination. Fang Xing stopped at a nearby park. There was a spirit bus stop next to the market, and he could take a spirit bus back later. Just as he was about to take a step toward the market, a hand suddenly fell on his shoulder. Classmate Fang, please wait. Who is it? Fang Xing was alert. He could feel this person's hand, but he couldn't see his figure, which proved two things. First, this person was currently invisible. Second, this person had used a layered space spell, which meant that under normal circumstances, no one could see him at all. Yet, this person was able to maintain normal communication. Generally speaking, no matter what the situation was, only criminals on the run could use this method to hide their identity. And this voice just now felt strangely familiar to Fang Xing. What do you want? Fang Xing asked. Come with us. My master wants to see you. The person's voice sounded very terrifying from behind Fang Xing. Fang Xing struggled for a bit, but realized that this person was as strong as an ox, and he couldn't break free at all. Fang Xing grit his teeth, turned around, and twisted his entire arm off in a way that ordinary people couldn't, breaking free of the person's control. Then, Fang Xing took a step forward, and the scene in front of him instantly changed. This was the second-generation intrinsic spirit field which his father, Immortal Shi Pai, had passed on to him. The person in front of him didn't have good intentions, and was definitely an enemy. Thus, Fang Xing didn't think too much about it, and decided to meet this person first. Chapter 978. Although the second-generation intrinsic spirit field was very powerful, Fang Xing knew that this battle couldn't be dragged out. His intrinsic spirit field had a gravity attribute, and anyone who entered it would find it difficult to move an inch. Once inside the intrinsic spirit field, the other party's identity would also be exposed. Fang Xing could clearly see the person's face. It was a familiar face with skin that was sickly white. The young man wore a white short-sleeved shirt and a gray overcoat. He wore a pair of jeans with suspenders on his lower body, which gave him the air of a "you're too beautiful" man. Bai Jia. Fang Xing was startled. He had never expected President Bai to actually still be alive. As far as he could remember, Bai Jia had already been annihilated along with Devil Gut Fungus Lord. Both his body and soul had been destroyed, and there was no possibility of resurrection at all. The person standing in front of him now had the same face as Bai Jia and his real name. Bewildered, Fang Xing frowned and looked at the other party with a vigilant expression. "No, you're not Bai Jia." Fang Xing frowned. Although this person looked very similar to Bai Jia, his aura was completely different. The sickly pale young man clapped. As expected of immortal Shi Pai's descendant, you can actually tell the difference. That's right, I'm indeed not Bai Jia, but his son, Bai Kuan Yu. He has a son. Fang Xing was astonished. Bai Kuan Yu smiled, which looked a little like he deserved a beating. Immortal Shi Pai's might shook the cultivation world back then, and his fame was matchless. But as everyone knows, he never married and lived out his life alone. It was only when he was imprisoned that he gave birth to you. If this damn lady boy has children, why doesn't my dad? Shut up. Fang Xing grit his teeth. His golden hair flew in the wind as he glared at Bai Yuquan. Since you're in my intrinsic spirit field, don't even think about leaving. His footsteps shook, and the ground in front of him instantly collapsed. Fang Xing's footprints were magnified infinitely, leaving behind a huge, deep pit. At the same time, a huge meteorite fell from the sky in the direction of the pit. Bai Yuquan had clearly come prepared. Deep in the pit, his expression didn't change in the slightest. He had expected that the second-generation intrinsic spirit field would be very strong. The intrinsic spirit field had been passed down from generation to generation, and it had originally stored immortal Shi Pai's power. All these years, Fang Xing had never stopped cultivating, and Bai Yuquan was now facing 89 times the normal gravity. It was indeed difficult for him to even take a single step here. Even a true immortal would find it hard to move under such a powerful gravitational force. Bai Yuquan knew that he was only at the soul formation stage, and he had no chance of winning against Fang Xing in a normal cultivation duel. But, the next moment, Bai Yuquan's entire body was covered in a burst of golden light, and he flew out of the pit. Fang Xing stared at Bai Yuquan, who gave off a very strange feeling from head to toe. What Bai Yuquan used was not spiritual energy. Instead, it was a power that Fang Xing had never seen before. Fang Xing knew that Bai Jia had collected outer Dao from all over the place to deal with Wang Ling. But now, the power that Bai Yuquan had revealed had far surpassed that of the heretics. It's not a divine power, it's not outer Dao, and it's not divine Dao. Fang Xing was surprised. Bai Yuquan's realm wasn't high, but the strength he was displaying was far beyond what it seemed. Bai Yuquan slowly emerged from the pit, his body exuding an aura that Fang Xing had never sensed before. As expected of the son of immortal Shi Pai, you live up to your reputation. But I heard that you have another form. If you don't show it, I'm afraid you won't be able to contend with me. His voice wasn't loud, but every word penetrated deep into the bones, as if it was ringing in the soul and reverberating throughout the intrinsic spirit field. If you won't show it, then I'll make the first move. Bai Yuquan took a step forward, and his aura was like a dragon blade cutting through the air. As he advanced, it destroyed the ground, sending rubble flying and forming a terrifying abyss. Just moving has such destructive power. Fang Xing was shocked. In that strange aura, the other party was able to walk through 89 times the normal gravity as if it were flat ground. This wasn't the strength that a soul formation cultivator should have. Classmate Fong, just give up. You're no match for me, and even less for my father. Bai Yuquan sneered. He threw a punch, and Fong Xing was sent flying backward as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Bai Yuquan moved extremely quickly, and his second punch was aimed at Fong Xing's leg. Snake scales. Fong Xing reacted very quickly. He sent out his life-bonded magic treasure, and the snake spirit swiftly formed a defensive wall around where the punch was going to land, but it could only serve as a buffer. Bai Yuquan's punch wasn't pretentious, but it was merciless as it shattered the bones in Fong Xing's leg. It's over, classmate Fong. Bai Yuquan recited an incantation, and his overalls suddenly flew off of their own accord. Like tentacles, they wrapped around Fong Xing's hands and feet firmly. Fong Xing stared in astonishment as Bai Yuquan appeared in front of him in only his underwear. He had even taken off his gray coat and white t-shirt. Exhibitionist, Fong Xing stared at this person, his heart in a tempestuous storm. This person's realm was strange. He clearly wasn't strong, but he was displaying strength beyond his realm and was displaying strength that Fong Xing had never seen before. Who wants to capture me? Fong Xing knew that it was pointless to fight with all his might at the moment, so he stared at Bai Yuquan and asked. My father wants to see you. Bai Yuquan smiled. You should have already seen that my realm is only at the soul formation stage, but my strength far surpasses that of a true immortal. Even if I go up against the 10 generals, they might not be my match. And my father is dozens of times stronger than me. Your father should already be dead. Who can say for sure about life and death in this world? It's all just fate. Bai Yuquan shrugged. Why are you looking for me? You don't need to fish for information, classmate Fong. You can't escape me. I might as well tell you the truth. We're looking for true immortal Shipai's urn. After true immortal Shipai died, he gave it to you to deal with. If you hand it over, you might be able to resurrect your father. You want to resurrect my father? Fong Xing was astonished. Bai Yuquan, I don't know how, but my father was resurrected. Resurrecting your own father, I think this should be a very good deal for you. You probably have a lot of questions to ask your father, right? Fong Xing, why are you looking for my father? Bai Yuquan, everyone knows that true immortal Shipai gave birth to you alone. When it comes to infertility, he's an expert in this field. Who else would we look for if not him? Fong Xing. Chapter 979. More than 10 years ago, immortal Shipai had been punished by Huaxiao Alliance for several crimes, stripped of all his magic power, and sentenced to death. Before he died, true immortal Shipai laid an egg and entrusted it to General Yi. And the baby born from the egg was Fong Xing himself. Fong Xing had in fact never given up on investigating his father's death, but in the end, he still hadn't found anything. On the way, as Bai Yuquan listened to Fong Xing's story, he couldn't help having a strange look in his eyes. So, you're not human. You're not human, but humans are mammals, and you jumped out of King egg. Won't people say you copied Demon King Piccolo? A chicken is still born from an egg, that's true, Bai Yuquan grabbed Fong Xing. At that moment, the two of them were in a spirit car. This was a custom-made car made of a very strange material, but there was absolutely no oil leakage, and it definitely wouldn't attract the crying female graduate student who sat on the hood of the car. True Shipai's death back then was very strange. He was Devil Emperor Guo Pai's disciple, and had always worked behind the scenes. But after Devil Emperor Guo Pai was captured, he suddenly led a large number of devil troops in rebellion. His way of doing things was very strange, Bai Yuquan said suspiciously. Before capturing Fong Xing, he had done a lot of homework. You also think there's something wrong with my father's death? It's just a hunch. I think there might be something to it. But True Shipai has already been dead for more than 10 years, so there's not much point in discussing this now. Saying this, Bai Yuquan looked at Fang Xing. I actually don't hate you, and I can even help you. Fang Xing, help me. Bai Yuquan, haven't you always wanted to know the truth of what happened back then? Given my father's current strength, it'll be a piece of cake for him to investigate what happened back then. Hearing this, Fang Xing was silent. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking of a way to escape. If you had fought to the death in the intrinsic spirit field back then, I wouldn't have taken you away so easily. Bai Yuquan smiled and said, you deliberately lost so easily because you wanted me to bring you to our stronghold, and then you secretly released the news to inform your companions, right? Fang Xing was silent again. He had never expected Bai Yuquan to be so meticulous. Student Fang is not saying anything. Looks like I guessed right. Bai Yuquan leaned back comfortably in the armchair. He didn't care about Fang Xing at all, and wasn't worried that Fang Xing would suddenly attack him. Bai Yuquan smiled. So, classmate Fang Xing, you don't need to look for trouble. You told me about the location where true immortal Shipai's urn is hidden. It should be a fake address, right? After you were born, because some of the 10 generals were worried that the powerful power you inherited would bring hidden dangers to the future, they secretly trained you until you were 4 years old and sent you to the completely closed school, Disher Tianzhong. There were many children who were similarly talented but lost their parents there. However, the children from Sakura Heaven are unsociable. In many cases, no family is willing to take the initiative to adopt them. But you're lucky. You met your adoptive parents, Madame Fang, who now runs a noodle shop. It was only later that you had the chance to transfer to number 60 high. What else do you know? Fang Xing frowned. He felt that he had completely underestimated Bai Yuquan. This person knew more than Fang Xing had imagined. I know everything about you. Bai Yuquan smiled. You transferred to number 60 high to look for your childhood hero. It's all for that classmate Wang Ling, right? Hearing this, Fang Xing couldn't help widening his eyes. This matter, it was impossible for anyone else to know. He had never mentioned it to anyone. Are you feeling flustered, classmate Fang? Bai Yuquan snorted. There's no harm in telling you the truth. My father is just a part-time worker in the newly established organization. Our master is more powerful than you can imagine. From Bai Yuquan's words, for the first time, Fang Xing sensed an unprecedented risk. Indeed, the enemy this time couldn't be compared with the opponents of the past. Not only did the other party have incomparably mysterious strength, they also had a terrifying intelligence network and knew things that ordinary enemies couldn't possibly know. Now that things have come to this, I think classmate Fang no longer needs to hide anything. The organization is opening its arms to you, and I think you need to cherish this opportunity. Bai Yuquan crossed his legs as he spoke. He didn't need to drive. The spirit car was now in automatic spirit car drift mode and could drive itself. But Bai Yuquan knew that the address Fang Xing had given him was fake, so from the beginning, the car had been driving in circles in the city without actually going anywhere. What on earth do you want me to do? Fang Xing sighed. To show your sincerity, classmate Fang can hand over immortal Shipai's urn first, and then we'll talk about the deal. Classmate Fang, don't worry, we're not interested in the urn, we just need a little bit of the ashes, Bai Yuquan said. Do you want to soak it in milk, classmate Fang? Why ask when you already know the answer? If you want to know about your father, it's actually very simple. We just need to bring him back to life, and you can ask him yourself. Bai Yuquan said, you're his son, I believe he won't hide anything from you, and you'll eventually find the answer you've been searching for all these years. Then wait. Fang Xing took a deep breath. In the next moment, his stomach instantly swelled up. It was as if Bai Yuquan already knew what Fang Xing was going to do, and he cried out in disbelief. Holy shit, did you eat your father's urn? Fang Xing didn't say anything. After a long while, he spat out a small, unadorned black iron box. Immortal Shipai's ashes were stored inside the pouch. The entire urn was in perfect condition. Bai Yuquan didn't mind. Taking the urn, he straightaway wiped the saliva off it with his own grapefruit, and then posted a selfie. Fang Xing. Bai Yuquan, don't misunderstand, I didn't reveal anything about the urn. I just wanted to post a selfie to remember it. Actually, I've always been a fan of Immortal Shipai. People like us are also called Ish, and our organization isn't any smaller than Icon. Fang Xing, just as Bai Yuquan finished speaking, a series of sirens suddenly rang out next to the spirit car. Police. Bai Yuquan rolled down the window, but the person outside wasn't wearing a police uniform. Chapter 980. Visual China. It was a rogue online photo download company that collected arbitrary copyright fees. Many people unknowingly used online images, and then the company came knocking on their door to demand copyright fees. The main point was that the company didn't allow people to delete the photos, so they had to pay compensation or file a lawsuit. Rich companies would directly send a lawyer's letter, while poor companies would send a lawyer's letter for a few years. The most amazing thing was that this company relied on copyright lawsuits to ***King go public. There had always been a saying on the internet, Visual China has suffered for a long time. Respecting copyright was originally a good thing, but acting like a hooligan while using copyright protection as a shield was wrong. It was clear that Visual China didn't have any self-awareness, and even took it upon Bai Yuquan to do the same. Bai Yuquan rolled down the window, completely ignoring the young man on the motorcycle outside. After all, the most painful thing in the world was to deal with hooligans. A bunch of hooligans wasn't scary, but cultured hooligans were scary. You're ignoring him. Fang Xing felt that it wasn't Bai Yuquan's character to keep the peace. Although he hadn't known Bai Yuquan for very long, Fang Xing had already attached his own label to him. There was no doubt that this was a dangerous person, and could also be called a benevolent villain. After closing the window, Bai Yuquan looked at the time. 3 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. Boom. As Bai Yuquan counted down to 3, Fang Xing suddenly heard a huge noise outside the window, and all the cars on the overpass felt a tremor. At that moment, Bai Yuquan turned on the road traffic broadcast. A few minutes later, there was an announcement. Hello, citizens. We have urgent news. According to the latest report, Visual China building exploded for an unknown reason 5 minutes ago, and has now been reduced to ashes. The specific cause of the accident is currently under investigation. Fang Xing was stunned. Aren't you too? This is our organization's style of doing things. Student Fang, you better get used to it as soon as possible. Bai Yuquan gave a devilish smile. Now, we're already in the same boat. You really aren't afraid to provoke anyone. Except for IKUN. There are too many people on the other side, and we can't wipe them all out in a short time. But we've already released the news online, and I believe Huaxiao Alliance will respond. Why should Huaxiao Alliance listen to you? Fang Xing was shocked. Do you know what Icon means? Icon equals, I want to kill the United Nations, wanted to annihilate the United Nations. Isn't this clearly pointing at Huaxiao Alliance? We have released the news on the internet. I believe it won't be long before they can't hold on anymore. Bai Yuquan revealed a devilish smile. He fondly played with the simple, pitch-black urn in his hand, as if he really had a soft spot for Immortal Shipai. Fang Xing took a deep breath. He felt that Bai Yuquan was a little scary. What was even more frightening was that he didn't know who on earth the mastermind behind this menacing President Bai was. Now that he was completely monitored by Bai Yuquan, there was no way for him to escape. Could Wang Ling sense the danger this time? Fang Xing was worried. Student Fang, since you've already given the organization your first gift, then, do you want to meet our leader? Bai Yuquan asked as he fiddled with the urn. Your father? Fang Xing asked. No, the mastermind behind the scenes, someone you definitely won't expect, Bai Yuquan replied. At that moment, in the noodle shop, Wang Ling, Wang Ming and Guo Ping were still waiting for Fang Xing to return. It's been almost 2 hours since student Fang went out to buy ingredients. Why isn't he back yet? Guo Ping frowned. He felt that the situation wasn't simple. Let's listen to some music. There might be some traffic on the way, said Wang Ming. He turned on Irascible Dharmaraj's new single, Big Bowl of Wide Noodles. This was the latest song released today, and had instantly become a hot search with tens of millions of people paying attention to it. This was Irascible Dharmaraj's self-deprecating song. Previously, Irascible Dharmaraja had always been criticized for his terrible singing. Now that he had released this song, who knew how much better the public relations ability behind him was than some of his peers? The melody of A Big Bowl of Wide Noodles was actually pretty good, but Guo Ping wasn't in the mood to listen to it right now. Fang Xing still hadn't returned, and Guo Ping had a bad feeling. Could something have happened? As Guo Ping said this, Wang Ling used the Great Deduction spell to divine Fang Xing's movements, and saw that Fang Xing's fate line was calm and peaceful, without anything out of the ordinary. If there was any danger, then the fluctuation of the fate line should be unstable, like the waves of the ocean. Wang Ling put down his finger and drank the noodle shop's barley tea, which still smelled of tea. This was Fang Family Noodle Shop's homemade barley tea, which was freshly brewed every day. Today, Fang Xing had gotten up very early to welcome them to the meeting. Now that he had gone to the market to buy ingredients, it wasn't like he had found an excuse to stand them up. Somehow, Wang Ling felt that something wasn't right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He just felt that it was a little strange. He suddenly felt as if he had been caught in something. Or perhaps, something was obstructing him. After another half an hour, Guo Ping was a little impatient. In fact, he was mainly worried about Fang Xing. Fang Xing wasn't familiar with Guo Ping, but Guo Ping was very familiar with him. The truth was that Guo Ping had secretly watched Fang Xing grow up. When Immortal Shi Pai had laid an egg back then, it had actually been Guo Ping who had used existing equipment to safely hatch Fang Xing from the egg. It could be said that Guo Ping had been one of the witnesses to Fang Xing's hatching. Their relationship had been forged a long time ago. It was just that Fang Xing himself didn't know it. Wait a minute. Guo Ping took out his phone and sent a text message to a few of his friends at the municipal police station. Whether it was a traffic accident or something else, it had to be filed with the cultivation police. If there really was an accident, at the very least, his friends at the cultivation police station would be able to give Guo Ping some feedback. Guo Ping texted several people, and later even asked the head of the cultivation public security department. When the headquarters used their computers to check, they found no leads. How is it? Asked Wang Ming. No news. Guo Ping frowned. I'll do it. At that moment, Wang Ling said telepathically. He sent a text message to the number 60 squad's group chat. Has anyone seen Fang Xing? Fang Xing. I don't know, are you looking for him? Super Chen replied instantly. With one look, Wang Ling knew that this guy was playing games, Wang Ling replied. He didn't contact us, and I don't know where he is. I think there's an 80 to 90% chance that he was kidnapped. Super Chen sent a sinister smile. Sogu Reading Website. Chapter 981. Wang Ling had never made a mistake in his calculations, but he had made a mistake this time, and it was a little strange. Fang Xing's fate had clearly not fluctuated, but he had been kidnapped for no reason at all. Given Fang Xing's strength, how could ordinary kidnappers have been able to do anything to him? As Wang Ling pondered this, there was something strange about this matter from beginning to end. Ling, something doesn't seem right. Even Wang Ming frowned as he felt something he had never felt before. It was like a mouthful of blood clogged up in his heart, and it was a little suffocating. I have a bold idea, Wang Ling suddenly said telepathically at that moment. Then, he looked at Guo Ping. He needed to verify this idea with Divine Dao Star. He suspected that apart from Heavenly Dao, Outer Dao and Divine Dao, there might be another kind of power. Elsewhere, Bai Yuquan had brought Fang Xing to the mouth of a city alley. This was a dead end, and next to it was an unfamiliar bar that Fang Xing had never been to before. Looking at the way things were going, he had already entered Bai Yuquan's and the others' territory from the moment he entered the street. There were two burly men in suits standing guard at the mouth of the dead end, and when they saw Bai Yuquan, they voluntarily made way for him. These were just two guards doing odd jobs, but they were nascent soul experts. As Fang Xing brushed past them, he immediately noticed the tattoos on their necks. This was the symbol of foreign cultivation mercenaries. These people had burn marks on their bodies, which immediately gave Fang Xing an idea. But what Fang Xing didn't expect was that after entering the dead end, Bai Yuquan would directly say frankly, "Student Fang is right, these people are all dead. They are all from abroad and died in battle for their former organizations. They are a group of people worthy of respect. You resurrected them." "That's right." Bai Yuquan said, "They died in battle for their former organizations. They are a group of unyielding men. We resurrected them, and they will serve us wholeheartedly now. They are a group of warriors who aren't afraid of death. Furthermore, they are already dead, and have nothing to do with their former organizations." Bai Yuquan laughed. "Also, these people have already been dead for over 300 years, and have long since been reduced to ashes. No one expected them to come back to life. Regardless of whether they died for the organization or if the organization wanted them dead, they would not leave behind any evidence. Even if a corpse is left behind, there's no way to find it." Hearing this, Fang Xing exclaimed in his heart. This was indeed a good move. Letting dead people, who had been dead for hundreds of years, continue to work for his organization. No one had thought of this. Resurrection spells did exist in this world, but because of the complexity of the methods, and because of the law of equivalent exchange and the law of conservation of psionic energy, resurrecting a person required the sacrifice of many things. For example, amputating limbs. Perhaps it could only be exchanged for 1 to 2 years of a person's lifespan. This was not a cost-effective spell, and it was also a forbidden spell. Bai Yuquan's organization seemed to have some power that ignored the forbidden spell and used this complicated resurrection spell as an ordinary spell. Mass revival, this was something Fang Xing couldn't imagine. Bai Yuquan and the others had so many strange methods that it left people speechless. He took Fang Xing to the end of the alley. After Bai Yuquan made a hand seal, a strange magic array lit up on the wall, which was densely covered with runes that Fang Xing couldn't understand. It definitely wasn't the spirit language or the divine language, which Fang Xing had already experienced on Divine Dao Star. It was clear that the runes on this magic array were very different from any language that Fang Xing knew. They looked more like the characters of ants, and at first glance, they didn't seem to be any different from each other. Fang Xing's face froze when he saw these cryptic runes. He felt that everything was too strange, and completely out of his control. Fang Xing felt like he had sunk into a giant pit that he couldn't get out of. "Classmate Fang, it's too early to be alarmed. There's a lot of things you haven't seen before." Bai Yuquan pressed his palm against the magic array, and Fang Xing saw the array distort as the light turned and zigzag. Finally, a mouth suddenly materialized in the center of the array. An old voice rang out, like the resurrection of an ancient creature, and it gave off a soul-shaking sound. Please verify your identity. Fang Xing's heart trembled at this voice, and he felt as if his soul had actually been completely hooked away by it. In that instant, Fang Xing was suddenly curious about this strong power. He suddenly felt that everything he had learned now wasn't enough at all. In the face of this power, he suddenly felt that everything he had learned now wasn't enough. It was to the extent that his soul and heart began to fluctuate. But very quickly, Fang Xing came back to his senses as a familiar aura pulled him back to reality. In his pocket was an eraser that Wang Ling had given him. He had borrowed it from Wang Ling during the midterm exams, but had forgotten to return it after the exams, and Wang Ling hadn't asked him for it. Later, by the time Fang Xing realized it, it was already summer break. He had no intention of returning the eraser, and at that moment, it was the power of this eraser that had pulled Fang Xing back to reality and prevented his soul from being hooked away by this mysterious power. Fang Xing realized that this mysterious power was a little like a drug. Once you fell into it, it would be hard to get out, as if you were stuck in mud. Please verify your identity. At that moment, the mouth in the strange array spoke once again. After speaking twice, Bai Yuquan didn't immediately verify Fang Xing's identity, and seemed to be waiting for this mysterious power to swallow him up. But strangely, Fang Xing didn't fall for it. The second time, Fang Xing didn't know if it was because of the eraser, but he wasn't affected by this old voice, and he could feel that his consciousness was very clear. Furthermore, he saw Bai Youquan's puzzled expression on the side. Bai Yuquan narrowed his eyes, but in the end, he stuck his hand into the mouth. Fang Xing. Bai Yuquan, it's a little complicated to verify your identity. You have to stick your entire arm into the mouth and then say the password. If you're not from the organization and want to sneak in, your arm will be bitten off. As soon as Bai Yuquan said this, the mouth of the array, and XNSJ, Fang Xing. Bai Yuquan, this means that I have to say the password. After all, I can't speak properly with my hand in the mouth. Fang Xing. Then, Bai Yuquan stared at the mouth with a serious expression on his face and said, I'm Bai Yuquan. I like singing, dancing, rap and basketball. Fang Xing. Chapter 982. The maze in the dead end glowed, and a force pulled Fang Xing inside. Fang Xing followed Bai Yuquan into another world. To his surprise, it wasn't the base he had imagined, but a new world that seemed to have been molded. Everything here was reversed, like the surface of a mirror. Could this also be the power of a DGL? Fang Xing pondered in his heart. On the other side, Bai Yuquan stared at him with a mysterious smile. Classmate Fang, welcome to the world our Lord has set up, the Palace of Mirrors. Then, Fang Xing saw Bai Yuquan take out the urn which he had given him earlier, take out a very small pinch, and scatter it on the ground like brother salt. In an instant, a spirit plant with an embryo suddenly emerged from the ground. The stamen of this spirit plant was a baby in human form, but it was only the size of a sweet potato. Its stem was very thick and firmly rooted in the ground, and it seemed to be absorbing spirit power from the ground to replenish itself. Fang Xing noticed that the Palace of Mirrors was the complete opposite. Spirit chi was being consumed very quickly on Earth, and all the researchers were doing their best to solve this problem. However, the spirit chi in the Palace of Mirrors was unimaginably abundant. Let's go, I'll take you to see our Lord. Bai Yuquan planted the spirit plant at the entrance. Fang Xing said. What about this flower? Ignore it. In 24 hours, I'll take you to harvest your father. Elsewhere, after confirming that Fang Xing had been kidnapped, Wang Ling and the others began to carry out a preliminary search. Fang Xing's aura was completely gone, as if he had vanished from the world. But the problem was that people couldn't just disappear into thin air. Even if they disappeared from the world, there was a place where they had disappeared. I've already contacted my friend. He'll use the national AI facial recognition technology to identify the locations of the props, Guoping said. Maybe it won't be so troublesome. Wang Ming shook his head and said, how many surveillance cameras are there in the country? Even if we exclude those that are being maintained and repaired, there are still 300 million. Guoping said. This was Huaxiao Nation's Project Divine Eye, which had been set up to stop crime from the very beginning. Almost all public places, except for toilets and some relatively private areas, were covered with the God Eye Project's road detectors. They were all extremely clear. After zooming in, even a few hairs on one's face could be seen clearly. Thinking of what Wang Ming had said, Guoping felt that he had almost misunderstood. You mean, start with the damaged and repaired probes? Since there are damaged and repaired probes, let's start with the ones in Songhai City. We might find something faster. Those people probably won't be so stupid as to brazenly make Fang Xing disappear. After Wang Ming said this, Guoping hurriedly nodded. All right. Project Divine Eye had a grand layout, but the rate of damage and maintenance was very low. There were less than 5% nationwide, and even less in Songhai City. Then start with the bad ones. I'll arrange it. Guoping said as he stared at Wang Ling. From the very beginning, he had noticed that Wang Ling had been rooted to the spot like a block of wood. Ling Jinren, he's trying to confirm something. It should be an out-of-body experience. But in this state, it's best not to disturb him, Wang Ming said. Why, this is custody mode. Even if his soul is in an out-of-body state, half the people won't be able to beat him with their physical bodies alone. I see. Guoping nodded thoughtfully. When he had first entered the room, he had thought that Wang Ling's skin was super good. After learning that Wang Ling's hair was the energy lines he had consumed while drifting through the universe, Guoping's interest in Wang Ling had skyrocketed. Now that he was so close to Ling Jinren, Guoping almost couldn't restrain his impulse just now. He actually wanted to pinch Ling Jinren's face. Sure enough, cute boys really made it easy for people to commit crimes. Teacher Gua, are you thinking something vulgar and disrespectful to my little brother? Wang Ming had sensed Guoping's abnormality. As a qualified and perverted brother Khan, Wang Ming was doing his best to keep a cool head. Guoping quibbled, Ling Jinren isn't here now, don't you want to do some human research up close? Human research. Hearing this, Wang Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. He never thought that Guoping would actually come up with such a tactful and unpretentious way of putting it. The point was that it sounded damn reasonable. They were all scientific researchers, and it was necessary to do human research up close. But no. Wang Ming felt that he had to keep his cool. How could he let other scientific researchers touch his little brother so casually? Teacher Gua, please put away your bold ideas about my little brother. Wang Ming stood up agitatedly. His elbow slanted and knocked the teacup off the table. The teacup fell to the floor, but because of its material, it didn't shatter, and instead rolled all the way to Wang Ling's feet. Thus, when the teacup touched Wang Ling's shoe, an astonishing scene happened. There was a hum. A shock wave spread out with Wang Ling at its center. Then, Ling Jinren, who had been sitting obediently in his chair, shot out a laser beam from his eyes, directly shattering the teacup in his eyes. When the wind blew, not even ashes were left. Teacher Gua, do you still want to do it? Wang Ming hesitated. Let's postpone this investigation, there's always a chance. Guoping pulled his neck back and withdrew his hand. Elsewhere, Wang Ling's soul had left his body and appeared on Divine Dao Star. Divine Dao Star was very far from Earth, but Wang Ling had already been here once. He had left his aura here, so he could come over at any time. It hadn't even been half a month since Star-Lord had been crippled the last time, and he still hadn't fully recovered yet. Jinka had been a little fierce the last time, and wounds caused by Jinka wouldn't heal so easily. When Wang Ling went over, Star-Lord was still lying on the bed with his legs crossed and bandaged up. The chair which the oracle had transformed into had been smashed to pieces by Jinka and by Qiao's Jingbai, which was a combination of oracle and oracle. In any case, after that experience, Star-Lord's after effects had been completely exposed, and he didn't even keep the goldfish in his fish tank anymore. When he saw the dead fish eyes, it felt like Wang Ling was looking at him, and he would break out in a cold sweat every night when he dreamed. This time, Wang Ling didn't say hello at all. He floated in the air and met Star-Lord's eyes. Star-Lord was so scared that he pissed his pants. F***K. Curse grudge. Sogu reading website. Chapter 983. Star-Lord paled at Wang Ling's sudden appearance. His first reaction was to run away, and he immediately decided to cut off his tail. Cutting off his tail to survive, Wang Ling was a little surprised. He hadn't expected this guy to be a gecko. He had always thought that the divine dragons were a higher type of lizard. Holding his tail in his hand, Star-Lord was so frightened that he fell onto the bed. Hearing the noise, several inner palace guards outside the door immediately opened the door and barged in. Their movements were uniform and extremely fast. It was clear that they had been trained many times. But these inner palace guards were also injured, because they had all been beaten up by Wang Ling before. After the group of divine dragons broke into the room, the leader didn't even get a clear look at Wang Ling before he roared, "How dare you? How dare you break into Star-Lord's palace? I think you don't want to live." At this point, his voice abruptly stopped, because they saw that the person who had appeared in front of Star-Lord's bed was Wang Ling. Then, this group of divine dragons took a step back and closed the door. "Sorry, I cleaned up, Star-Lord." "Wang Ling, big brother, I've already apologized, what else do you want?" Star-Lord wanted to cry but had no tears. After what had happened last time, he completely knew that he had been wrong. Previously, he relied on the will of the God realm and had always acted as he pleased. But it wasn't until he met Wang Ling that he realized that there was always someone better out there. The most important thing was that the divine realm had already been stirred up, and even Thousand-Winged God was helpless in the face of this group of people, to say nothing of Star-Lord. Relying on the power of the divine realm, Divine Dao Star had been wildly expanding in the universe until Wang Ling's appearance, when he completely gave up on the idea of dominating the universe. What is the purpose of Exalted God's visit? Star-Lord spoke in Mandarin this time. Actually, Star-Lord could speak Mandarin to begin with, and as an alien, his spoken language was even very standard. He had always been very interested in Earth's culture, but hadn't shown it because of his pride. This time, in order to establish friendly relations with Earth, apart from recuperating from his injuries, Divine Dao Star-Lord was dragged along to attend supplementary classes. Now, not only did he learn all kinds of things that were needed on Earth, he even learned advanced mathematics. Thousand-Winged God dragged him along to study linear algebra, advanced functions, and vector space. It was too difficult. Why did this terrifying planet want to study such a terrifying thing? Wang Ling stared at Star-Lord's small, deathly pale face. For a green face to actually turn stone gray, it was clear that Wang Ling had traumatized Star-Lord back then. Of course, Wang Ling had come for proper business this time, and had no intention of deliberately teasing Star-Lord. He directly asked about some things he was concerned about telepathically. Actually, he felt that he would be able to learn more about these things if he went to the divine realm and asked around, but he hated the way those winged gods acted all high and mighty. Divine Dao Star was the only planet authorized by the divine realm, and this Star-Lord had been expanding for so many years, so he might know a lot about it. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to deal with those winged gods again. When their wings were spread out, there were at most 1,000 of them, which was a ghastly sight to behold, as if they were suffering from trypophobia. Wang Ling felt that when the author had written this paragraph back then, he hadn't taken the animation team into consideration at all. 1,000-winged angels, this was too difficult to draw. This was basically asking the artist to die. Thus, Wang Ling had always had the idea that when they animated this paragraph, it would be better to directly get KFC to advertise it, and then replicate New Orleans roast wings on these wing gods, which would make money and save money. Instead, you could even endorse a few more chicken wing products, such as spicy chicken wings and finger-sucking original chicken. Wang Ling's question stumped Star-Lord for a moment. Divine Lord, apart from Heavenly Tao, Outer Tao, and Divine Tao, are there any other powers? Star-Lord thought carefully for a moment, then replied, as far as I know, there shouldn't be. As he said this, Star-Lord wiped at his sweat. Back then, Wang Ling had taken care of him in just a few moves. When it came to power alone, who in the entire universe would know it better than Star-Lord? But since Wang Ling had asked this question with such sincerity, Star-Lord could only answer truthfully and make his own conjecture. Among the supreme powers in the universe, apart from Outer Tao, Divine Tao, and Heavenly Tao, there really aren't any other powers. Even if they exist, they most likely can't be listed among the supreme powers. Furthermore, most powers basically have something in common. The reason why Outer Tao, Divine Tao, and Heavenly Tao can become the supreme powers is that they can be found in other powers. So, as he said this, Star-Lord turned his head to look at Wang Ling, only to find that Wang Ling wasn't listening to him, but was seriously reading through the 3-5 that he had done. This was the homework that 1,000-winged God had given him. At that moment, Wang Ling was correcting it. There are a lot of mistakes. Work hard. In less than a moment, Wang Ling had put the corrected 3-5 on Star-Lord's bedside table. Star-Lord, elsewhere, in the noodle shop, Wang Ming and Guo Ping were waiting for news from Wang Ling. Wang Ling was still in control, his eyes lifeless and his pupils unfocused. He looked like an easy target to bully, but neither of them dared offend him lightly. I wonder what the situation is like. Guo Ping paced back and forth in the noodle shop with his hands behind his back, a little worried. How's the Divine Eyes investigation going? Asked Wang Ming. After the screening, the scope of their investigation had been greatly narrowed down, and Wang Ming had a feeling that it was about time. Let me ask. Guo Ping took out his phone again, and at that moment, it rang. It was a series of miserable screams so shrill that Guo Ping's hand trembled and he almost dropped the phone. After quickly composing himself, Guo Ping asked, Hello. I'm Guo Ping. What's going on? The miserable screams coming from the research institute made Guo Ping feel a little uneasy. Is this Professor Guo Ping? A stranger's voice came from the other end of the line. Guo Ping knew the people at the research institute like the back of his hand, and it was obvious that this was an outsider's voice. He frowned. Who are you? Professor Guo, what a good plan. You want to find out student Fang's whereabouts by investigating the Divine Eye. You guessed right, student Fang was abducted. But I'm afraid you won't have the chance to find out where he is. Just as the stranger's voice fell on the other end of the line, several figures broke through the window at the entrance to Fang Xing's noodle shop. Not good. Guo Ping was astonished. They had been attacked. 5 nascent soul experts wearing the same black shadow suit entered the noodle shop. In that instant, Wang Ming pulled Guo Ping to the back to hide. Wang Ming couldn't see their faces clearly. The black shadow suit was a special type of weaponized Daoist robe that looked like a shadow when worn. However, it was extremely expensive to make, and it was impossible for an ordinary organization to have such a large-scale black shadow army. More importantly, the black shadow suit was a national strategic secret Daoist robe, which was only used by cultivation agents engaged in secret military work. But now, these people were dressed in the same uniform, which was unfathomable to Wang Ming and Guo Ping for a moment. The 5 nascent soul cultivators who had broken into the noodle shop had a very clear plan. The leader of the Black Shadow Men commanded, "Go. Kill everyone here and go back to report." As soon as he said that, one of them raised a knife and slashed at Wang Ling, who was still in control. Chapter 984. This was the first time Wang Ming and Guo Ping had seen so many people dressed in black shadow suits appear at the same time. The other side's actions were clear and had clearly been premeditated. When Guo Ping had called the research institute earlier, there had been screams. Presumably, the institute had also been attacked by the Black Shadow Men. But what Guo Ping didn't understand was that the Black Shadow suits were Daoist robes in the country's top-secret strategic plan. To be able to mass-produce them and launch an armed raid in such large numbers, the other side's background was definitely no small matter. Are they from the Dark Network or the Dark Forces? Wang Ming pondered a lot of things in that short moment. This group of people were fully armed and had a well-planned plan. To be able to launch a perfect surprise attack at the same time wasn't something that an ordinary Dark Network or Dark Force could do. Furthermore, almost all the members of the Dark Network and Dark Forces were currently under surveillance, and these forces had all been infiltrated by the Cultivation Police and had been infiltrated by undercover agents. This undercover plan was also known as 3 years on the rooftop, 3 more years baby zither wine is bitter that there's no one normal by his side plan. The name of the plan sounded very long, but the security measures were in place. Other than the undercover personnel, no one would be able to repeat the name of the plan after hearing it only once. So, as long as they did not repeat it completely, they were all fake spies. Wang Ming, this group of people is very strong, we're no match for them. Also, they don't seem to be using spirit energy. Unlike Wang Ming, Guo Ping also had the strength of a nascent soul cultivator, but when faced with the nascent soul Black Shadow Men, he trembled. This group of people didn't use spirit energy to activate spells, and this unknown element terrified them. Thus, the moment this group of Black Shadow Men barged in, Wang Ming and Guo Ping instinctively hid behind Wang Ling. The Black Shadow leader with the knife sneered, he didn't know Wang Ling's identity. A bunch of researchers hiding behind a youngster, what utter stupidity, forget it, all of you here will die. Saying this, he chopped down at Wang Ling's head with his saber. The saber cut through the air with ferocious force, and the saber's blade cut through the air at a high speed, causing steam to rise. The saber rose and the head fell. But this was just the Black Shadow Man's imagination. The truth was that the moment this knife approached Wang Ling, he didn't even move his head when he was in control. Firepower instantly gathered in his king's eye, and a laser shot out swiftly, instantly reducing the knife to dust. Unlike the villains who had been killed in a split second earlier, the Black Shadow leader reacted extremely quickly. The moment Wang Ling's defensive light beam shattered the blade, he immediately abandoned his sword and retreated. At the same time, a sense of danger crept into his heart. This person, what the hell is going on? The leader of the Black Shadows broke out in a cold sweat. He had no doubt that if he had hesitated just now, his entire body would have been crushed to ashes by Wang Ling's defensive light along with the disappearing blade. Retreat. The leader of the shadowy figures immediately gave the order. Their original plan was to wipe out all the researchers in the world. If the attack failed, they could choose to retreat and report the situation. After that, the organization would come up with a plan to deal with the researchers that they failed to kill. The 5 of them were originally full of confidence after breaking into the noodle house. Like Bai Yuquan, they relied on their new power to do whatever they wanted. They were also at the nascent soul stage, but their strength was several times stronger than that of a normal nascent soul cultivator. Because of this, the moment they broke into the noodle house, Guo Ping, who was also at the nascent soul stage, shuddered. They had already locked onto Guo Ping and Wang Ming's positions earlier on, but had overlooked the factor of Wang Ling. Wang Ling was too powerful, and the 5 Shadow Men's assassination plan couldn't proceed smoothly. Thus, they wanted to retreat. They activated the escape button on their black shadow suits, and in a split second, the 5 of them turned into shadows in the air as they turned into streams of black light that fled in one direction. But it was already too late. At that moment, in control, Wang Ling's unfocused eyes finally focused. Wang Ling was back. He had already investigated what he wanted to investigate. Although he hadn't obtained any useful information, the moment his soul had returned, the memories from when he had been in control poured into Wang Ling's mind. Stay here. Wang Ling stared expressionlessly at the 5 shadow men. He knew that they were running away to report back, so all the more he couldn't let them escape. Thus, Wang Ling spread open his fingers and grabbed the 5 shadow men who had already escaped out of thin air. Oh! The 5 shadowy figures let out miserable screams one after another. Like strung cheese, they were pulled back from the void. Then, the 5 of them fell to the ground, piled on top of each other. At the same time, Wang Ling finally realized that these 5 people weren't like the cultivators he usually dealt with. He had only used the strength of pinching an ant to cautiously pull them back, but he felt an unprecedented resistance. As Guo Ping had said, they weren't normal cultivators who used spirit energy to power spells, but an unknown energy that was denser than primordial qi was used to power the spells. This piqued Wang Ling's interest. Because the primordial qi was too powerful, Wang Ling had always been looking for a way to suppress it, and relying solely on the Dao Talisman seal wasn't going to work. Sooner or later, he would think of a way to master this power himself. But now, an energy that was even denser than primordial qi had actually appeared. Then, how had this group of shadow men been controlled? In an instant, Wang Ling pondered a lot of things. Several magic rings fell on the 5 people, and they were immediately imprisoned by Wang Ling's power of heavenly Dao. Because he wasn't sure how strong these people were, he deliberately used a little more strength this time. The 5 people were imprisoned on the spot. Wang Ling clapped his hands. For the first time, he felt that catching people was actually a strenuous task. It looked like he would have to eat a few more crispy noodle snacks today to replenish his SP. In that round of consumption just now, if a full bar of SP was 100, he had used up a whole 3 points. What a terrifying thing this was. After all, when he had dealt with Evil Sword God back then, he had only used up 1 SP. Just 5 nascent soul cultivators were already so difficult to deal with, who knew what kind of enemies he would encounter in the future. At that moment, a figure covered in blood staggered into the noodle shop. Jia Yin. Wang Ming cried out in alarm when he saw who it was. Chapter 985. Jia Yin was badly injured and covered in blood. It seemed that she had used the last of her willpower to reach the noodle shop to look for Wang Ming. When she reached the noodle shop and saw that Wang Ming was still safe, it was as if the last of her burdens had been lifted, and she fainted with a bloodless face. Guo Ping hurried forward with an embarrassed expression. She's going to die, she's lost a lot of blood. At the same time, Guo Ping was deeply shocked by Jia Yin's willpower. It could only be said that this was Jia Yin. If it had been anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to hold on until now after losing so much blood. The situation was serious, and Wang Ling was just about to help her, when Dog 2 suddenly crawled out from under the table and directly used the Toad Clan swallowing spell on Jia Yin. After swallowing Jia Yin, Dog 2 burped. Little Master doesn't need to do anything, I can save her. You? Wang Ming was skeptical. When that black shadow man had broken in earlier, this green-furred dog had run faster than anyone else, and had instantly crawled under the table. You didn't come out earlier, why are you here now? Guo Ping laughed, thinking that Dog 2's cowardly appearance was a little funny. I don't know why I was so cowardly earlier. It's very likely that the author forgot about me when he wrote the last chapter. Dog 2 sighed. Can she really be cured? Asked Wang Ming. It's no problem. Our sky-swallowing toad clan's toad oil is a natural holy item for healing, and can heal internal and external injuries in an instant. After my body was transformed, I've been hoarding toad oil, and now I have enough for dozens of people, said Dog 2. A few minutes later, it opened its mouth and spat out a brand new Jiayin. Just as Dog 2 had said, Jiayin's injuries were completely healed, and even her complexion had recovered a lot. In the demon world, the sky-swallowing toad clan's toad oil could be directly traded as a top-grade medicine, and part of the sky-swallowing toad clan's economy was supported by selling toad oil. Then, they would use the money earned from selling the toad oil to buy large quantities of flesh-eating flies to supplement their nutrition. The price of flesh-eating flies was hundreds of times cheaper than toad oil. After the flies were swallowed and digested, they would become brand new toad oil. The sky-swallowing toad clan's way of making money in the demon world was like a perpetual motion machine. Jiayin was soaked in the toad oil, like a baby entering its mother's womb. Its internal and external injuries were instantly healed. After being spat out by Butt-Face, she quickly regained consciousness and slowly opened her eyes. He's awake. Wang Ming was excited. Even Wang Ling had a surprised expression on his face. The effect of the toad oil was even better than he had imagined. Captain Jai, what's going on? Guo Ping asked anxiously. He and Wang Ming had already made ample mental preparations. Jiayin was already seriously injured, so the research institute was definitely in chaos. It was just that Wang Ming and Guo Ping couldn't have imagined that after Qing Yu, the master of Immortal Mansion, was arrested, the #1 dark force had been dismantled, and that the dark network's organized criminal activities were under surveillance. They really couldn't think of any other organization that had the power to organize an armed force to launch a surprise attack on a research institute at a time like this. This was an important moment in establishing diplomatic relations with other planets, and the other party had chosen this time to launch a surprise attack on the research institute. This was simply the greatest provocation. Almost everyone in the research institute was killed, and old Qi is nowhere to be found. Jiayin collected her thoughts and said, they started a massacre as soon as they came in. If it wasn't for Wang Ming's long johns that helped me block a few fatal attacks, I'm afraid I would have already died in the first round. Saying this, Jiayin took out the long johns from her storage space. Wang Ling had enchanted them to begin with, but this was the first time this godly weapon had been unable to withstand an attack. It was riddled with holes and was already in tatters. Even Wang Ling was a little astonished when he saw this. He never thought that this kind of power existed in the world. If he had known earlier, he would have upgraded the long johns. Who on earth launched the attack? Was it someone like this group of people in black shadow suits? Wang Ming asked as he pointed at the 5 people on the ground. That's right, they were all dressed in the same uniform. They snuck in without making a sound, which is why everyone in the research institute was so heavily injured. Jiayin frowned. But it wasn't just our research institute that was attacked. All the research institutes around the world were also attacked. How could this be? Guo Ping turned pale with fright. It looks like the other party's target is already very clear. This is a plan to wipe out all the research institutes around the world, and I'm afraid all the researchers have been killed. Wang Ming frowned. If they hadn't been with Wang Ling this time, they would probably have already died by now. Who on earth are you? Dog 2 asked as it stepped on one of the black shadow men on the ground. Just kill us. We won't betray the organization. The 5 black shadow men turned their heads away. They were very stubborn and refused to confess. It was only because Wang Ling had acted so quickly that these 5 people might have already cut their own throats. Wang Ling could tell that this was a group of people who weren't afraid of death. If they could escape, they would, but if they couldn't, they had nothing to fear even if they died. It looks like there's no use asking them. Guo Ping slowly analyzed the situation. There are a few questions we need to face now. 1. How on earth did this group of black shadow men come here, and who instigated them? 2. What kind of power did they use? 3. What is their ulterior motive behind killing researchers all over the world? 4. If their goal is just to target researchers, then what is their purpose in capturing student Fang? Just as Guo Ping was talking about the fourth point, Wang Ming suddenly thought of something, and his eyes instantly lit up. I still don't know the first 3 points. But I have a very high probability of guessing the fourth point. Guo Ping, what is it? Wang Ming, Teacher Guo, have you forgotten Fang Xing's true identity and his background? Guo Ping's face turned a little unsightly. You mean, Wang Ming, student Fang himself might not be of any value to them, but his father was the old devil's right-hand inventor back then. Perhaps they are holding student Fang hostage because they want to resurrect immortal Shi Pai through his gene chain. Of course, all of this is just speculation for now. I still don't understand why they are massacring researchers so wantonly. The news has been suppressed for the time being, but in the end, the truth can't be contained. At that moment, Zhai Yin had already checked the news online. The murder of researchers all over the world was a major event, but if it was casually reported, it might become a fuse that would cause the entire cultivation world to panic. It was precisely because of this that this matter was still being suppressed for the time being. But Wang Ling, Wang Ming, and the others were well aware. If they couldn't find a solution to this in a short period of time, it would still be difficult to solve the problem. Chapter 986. Guo Ping and Wang Ming had successfully escaped disaster, but Wang Ling knew that this group of shadow men wouldn't let them off so easily. If they continued to stay on Earth, they would be a threat to both of them. So after some discussion, Wang Ling directly brought Wang Ming, Guo Ping, and the 5 captured shadow men to Divine Dao Star. For the second time, Star-Lord was so frightened that he fell off the bed. Now that his wound had split open for the second time, it might not be so easy for him to recover completely. Rest assured, Ling Jinren, I will do everything in my power to protect the two of you. Star-Lord made this promise, and his subordinates leaned against the door to listen. That evening, the interrogation of the 5 shadow men began on Divine Dao Star. The divine dragons roughly stripped them of their black shadow suits. Interrogation on Divine Dao Star wasn't that complicated. The divine dragons had their own plan, which was to use a 1000-degree knife and a hydraulic press. The so-called 1000-degree knife was a small knife that was supported by high-density divine power molecules. It cut open wounds on the skin one by one. The area of the wound was not large, but the pain caused by the wound was 1,000 times that of a normal knife. If one could find the right acupuncture point, even if it was just a small cut, it would be so painful that one would wish they were dead. Then, there was the hydraulic press. The hydraulic press on Divine Dao Star was powered by divine power. When the interrogator was being tortured, the divine dragons would fix a certain part of the interrogator's body to the hydraulic press. Generally speaking, it was the arm that was being tortured. Then, when the hydraulic press was turned on, everything in its path would be crushed to dust. These people weren't afraid of death, but wanted to die. They wouldn't speak unless they were being tortured. Because of this, Star-Lord's first reaction was to double the pain on the other party. Since they were tight-lipped and weren't afraid of death, he could only use this method to make them speak. Although it was very painful, this method wouldn't cause extensive damage. Even if the divine power hydraulic press was used to press down on the arm, it wouldn't kill them. The moment the hydraulic press pressed down, the high density of divine power molecules would instantly coagulate and stop the bleeding, but the pain would be 1,000 times greater than that of an ordinary severed arm. Previously, In order to force various aliens to sign unequal treaties with Divine Tao Star-Lord had often used this method to force alien leaders to submit, and it had worked time and time again. Wang Ling, Wang Ming, Guo Ping and the others had come to inspect the situation in Divine Tao Star's divine prison, while Star-Lord was personally in charge of the interrogation. These divine dragons had never seen such an ostentatious display before, but they still recognized Wang Ling's identity from his dead fish eyes. The group of divine dragons trembled in fear. There was no way they were mistaken. When Jingke and Bai Qiao had fused back then to make Jingbai come into the world, those dead fish eyes had left a deep impression on them. They knew that Jingbai's true identity was a sword spirit who had been summoned by a youngster. No one had seen Wang Ling's face, but they knew that Jingbai also had a pair of dead fish eyes. It was said that the spiritual sword was like its master. Now that Divine Tao Star-Lord was behind Wang Ling to oversee the situation, he didn't even dare let out a fart. It wasn't hard for them to guess his true identity from this attitude. When Wang Ling arrived, Divine Tao Star-Lord had already ordered people to strip off the clothes on these 5 shadow men. The 5 of them were to be interrogated separately, and collusion was forbidden. The interrogation room was made of a very special material with strange divine patterns engraved on it, which at the same time eliminated the possibility of these people communicating telepathically. When the 5 of them were stripped of their clothes, Divine Tao Star-Lord directly waved his hand. "Get ready." However, just as the divine dragons were about to descend with the 1,000-degree blades in their hands, the torturers noticed something unusual. "Your Excellency Star-Lord, there seems to be a problem." "What problem?" "There's a mark on their buttocks that I've never seen before." "Mark?" Divine Tao Star frowned. He was about to step forward, but after thinking for a bit, he still retreated to the side and made way for Wang Ling and the others. "You're worth teaching." Wang Ming and Guo Ping patted Divine Tao Star's shoulder as they brushed past each other. Divine Tao Star-Lord felt a little aggrieved. After all, it was very humiliating to do this in front of so many subordinates. But in the end, his desire to live allowed him to complete this operation. "What kind of mark is this?" Wang Ming pondered as he stared at the mark. Although he didn't cultivate, he was well read. But in Wang Ming's memory, he had never seen such an engraving. He felt that there was something strange about it. "I've never seen this thing in all my years of research." Guo Ping then shook his head. Divine Tao Star-Lord frowned as he looked at it. He had wanted to step forward to show off, but realized that he didn't recognize this mark either. For a moment, the situation was a little awkward. But at that moment, a familiar voice rang out. "Maybe I recognize it." Wang Ling looked in the direction of the voice and realized that it was actually coming from the cast on Divine Tao Star's body. "Wang Ling." Divine Tao Star-Lord was also startled. "Damn, don't remember my voice." The cast laughed. Although Divine Tao Star-Lord hadn't reacted yet, Wang Ling recognized the voice. This was the divine chair that Jingbai had split in half. "You're that chair," Wang Ling said as he stared at the cast on Star-Lord's leg. "As expected of Ling Jinren, it's me." "Everyone, how did you turn into a cast?" Guo Ping was curious. "After all, my materials were very expensive. Without me, it would have been very difficult to completely repair Star-Lord's leg. Thus, God crushed me and ground me into a cast so that I could attach myself to Star-Lord's thigh. On the other hand, this is also God's punishment for offending Ling Jinren. Star-Lord's leg hair is a little too much, it's really prickly." After everyone calmed down, Wang Ling continued to ask, "Do you recognize the mark?" "I do." The divine chair that had turned into a cast said, "I was created by God and know everything in the universe, as well as all kinds of buttocks in the universe. I've lived for so long, what kind of buttocks haven't I seen?" "Everyone," the divine chair said, "This mark is called a life mark. The way to activate the seal of fate is very special. You also need to cultivate a special Tao called Fate Tao in order to carve the life mark and use the fate technique. Apart from heavenly Tao, outer Tao and divine Tao, are there really other powers in the universe?" "Of course," the divine chair replied. "But Fate Tao is very special, and can't be cultivated by ordinary people. Because this Tao has the right to be designated, those who aren't designated won't be able to comprehend it in their entire lives." Chapter 987. Fate Tao. This was the first time Wang Ling had heard of it, but it was indeed the heavenly Tao related to fate, which Wang Ling had used a long time ago. In Chapter 23, he had used the Great Fate spell to predict Dopigua's future. In 600 years, Dopigua would open the largest seafood chain market in Huaxiu Nation since its founding. Heidileo. But judging from the strength of the mastermind behind this group of shadow men, Fate Tao itself was different from the Great Fate spell. To put it bluntly, the Great Fate spell could only be considered a spell under Heavenly Tao, while Fate Tao was an independent Great Tao. That was the difference between the two. To be able to form an independent Tao was already proof that the profound meaning of Fate Tao and the Great Fate spell were fundamentally different. So, is it also because of Fate Tao that these people were able to come back to life? Wang Ming speculated on the side. He wasn't surprised by the existence of Fate Tao. As a special Tao, Fate Tao's ability to choose its master was what Wang Ming was truly curious about. From this point of view, it was likely that Wang Ling wasn't the only one chosen by heaven in this universe. But the question was, what was up with that teenager who looked exactly like Wang Ling in his dream? Wang Ming was a little bewildered. Could it be that the universe didn't choose the chosen ones at random? Could it be that only dead fish eyes could be chosen by heaven? Wang Ming was startled at this conclusion. He didn't have dead fish eyes, but a pair of very beautiful double eyelids, which were natural and gave off a kind of languid air. So, was the real reason why he couldn't cultivate because the gods were jealous of his double eyelids? Wang Ming was a little absent-minded when he thought of this. "Brother Wang Ming, have you thought of something?" No. Wang Ming came back to his senses. In fact, he had just been wondering if he should wait until he returned to Earth before going to plastic surgery to see if he could change his double eyelids into dead fish eyes. Looking at the current Fate Tao mark, that is indeed the case. There wasn't the slightest bit of hesitation in the Divine Throne's reply. A human face slowly appeared on Star-Lord's leg, which was covered in plaster. This face was the same as the one that had appeared on the Divine Throne, and when it appeared, there were golden petals of the Kingdom of Heaven falling around it. Even its appearance was incomparably sacred. However, the Divine Throne had been replaced with a leg. This appearance still gave off an indescribably strange feeling. The Divine Throne looked at the shadow leader in front of it. "You can't fool me, let alone Crispy Noodles Tao Monarch. Tell me about your origins. Since you already know everything, why are you still asking me?" The leader sneered. He didn't fear death at all. He would not reveal any secrets. Most importantly, he had the Life Tao mark on him. Once these people forcefully invaded and stole his memories, the Life Tao mark would immediately activate and kill him. At that time, he would be the one freed. She would no longer have to feel the pain of torture. However, the Black Shadow seemed to have misunderstood something. Although he didn't say it, it didn't mean that he could use it to threaten him. When all was said and done, the Divine Throne was an emissary sent by the Divine Realm to assist in Divine Tao Star's development. It was originally Thousand-Winged God's exclusive chair to cross his legs. How honorable was its identity! When I crossed His Excellency God's legs, I listened to divine grace for thousands of years. Apart from Ling Jinren and Lord Jingbai, I have never seen anyone who could be so arrogant and despotic in front of me. The Divine Throne said indifferently, and Wang Ling and the others were utterly shocked by these extremely bootlicking words. The truth was that being a bootlicking wasn't the crux of the matter, but that it could actually sound so righteous while doing so. Wang Ling had never seen anything like this in his life. Furthermore, he couldn't find anything wrong with the way the Divine Throne addressed him as this venerable one. It was essentially a throne. If it wasn't this venerable one, what should it be called? Don't even think about getting anything from me. The shadow leader gnashed his teeth. If this venerable one tells you the truth, I'm afraid you won't be able to remain at ease. The Divine Throne sneered. The reason why you can act so unbridled here is because you don't fear death. Judging from the mark on your buttocks, your master has probably created another world, and you are the souls of the dead who travel between the two worlds. And all of you are the departed souls that shuttled between the two realms. Am I right? The shadow leader's face instantly turned unsightly. What do you mean by souls of the dead who travel between the two worlds? Wang Ming asked. The reason is very simple. The Divine Throne replied, these people shouldn't have appeared in this world in the first place. They're already dead. Dead? That's right. The Divine Throne nodded. But because of the Fate Tao mark, they can be resurrected in another world. Based on my deduction, this other world should be the counterpart of the fish's real world, a place similar to the mirror world. All the people who die in the real world will be resurrected in that world through some kind of Fate Tao spell. How did you know? The shadow leader turned pale with fright. He had never expected the other party to actually hit the nail on the head on this matter. It seems that my guess is completely correct. The Divine Throne nodded again. Everyone, the shadow leader was unconvinced. You actually tricked me. My venerable self is a god's throne, why can't I trick you? The Divine Throne laughed. Although I understand Fate Tao, in the end, I only heard it from God's mouth. What I know is limited. But Fate Tao itself is a great Tao spell that distorts fate. My venerable self guesses that this Fate Tao spell has something to do with resurrection. This group of people actually aren't afraid of death, presumably, they think that even if they die here, they can be resurrected in another world. That's a completely reasonable guess. Wang Ming and Guo Ping also nodded. At that moment, Zhai Yin thought of something. Then, does the killing of the scientists at the research institute also have something to do with Fate Tao? After they were killed, all their bodies were carried away. What's the purpose of these shadow men carrying the bodies away? It seems that this matter is already very clear. Wang Ming slowly closed his eyes as he thought of a guess. Scientific researchers all over the country were murdered. This was definitely part of their plan, and I'm afraid it was planned long ago. On the surface, it looks like they killed the researchers, but the truth is that they wanted to use the Fate Tao spell to bring this group of people to another world, and then use them for their own ends. As for why this group of people is so unscrupulous, Wang Ming paused, then said, I'm afraid it has a lot to do with their resurrection. Is there any way to break this? There is. The Divine Throne said, you just need to disrupt the order of their Fate Tao. How? Wang Ling asked telepathically. The Divine Throne gave an astonishing reply. Take off your butts and exchange them. Everyone, Sogu reading URL. Chapter 988. The Divine Throne had come up with a plan to replace the Fate Tao mark to break the order of fate. Since this group of people didn't need to worry about their own lives because of the Fate Tao mark, they would naturally confess as long as their confidence was broken. The leader of the Black Shadow Men was bewildered, he didn't doubt the Divine Throne's words at all. Based on the powerful divinity that the Divine Throne gave off, the leader of the Black Shadow Men was well aware that he wasn't its match. Although they had been strengthened by the Fate Tao mark and their strength had increased tremendously, allowing them to fight above their level. What kind of divine throne was this? We were all wronged and buried for hundreds of years back then. It wasn't easy for us to revive, and we just want to serve our master and live well. Please don't cut off our path to survival. The leader of the Black Shadow Men pleaded bitterly after struggling in his heart. Very well. The divine throne chuckled. Then let's talk about the mastermind behind this plan. Who is it? This person's surname is Bai, and his name is Bai Yuquan. He's our direct superior. We have no right to meet anyone of higher rank, the leader of the Black Shadow Men said. Bai Yuquan. Wang Ming thought the name was a little familiar. He frowned. I remember when Bai Zhe was arrested, didn't he have a son called Bai Yuquan? This was his illegitimate child, but he died at a young age. According to Bai Zhe's own account, when he raised his son, he often used him as a dumbbell to train his muscles. One time, he accidentally broke his arm. Plus, his spirit qi is yin, and when it entered his body, it directly froze this child who was only a few months old to death. Everyone was astonished. No one had expected this kind of operation. As for why Bai Yuquan could be resurrected, after understanding the characteristics of Fate Dao, no one had any doubts. Someone who had been dead for hundreds of years could be resurrected, to say nothing of Bai Zhe's child. In addition, with Wang Ming's strange dream earlier, they could now confirm that the resurrection of President Bai Zhe and Devil Gut Fungus Lord was probably true. Then who was the mastermind behind the scenes? Was it that white-haired youngster who looked exactly like Wang Ling? Now that the matter of resurrection in the dream had been verified, Wang Ming's heart couldn't help trembling. Who on earth was imitating Wang Ling's face? He felt that he needed an answer. What's your name? Who were you before you were resurrected? What did you do? The divine throne continued to ask. I am Yuzhong. I was a foreigner before I was resurrected. I later joined a foreign mercenary group. I died in a war between mercenaries, a mercenary war. Yes, in foreign countries, battles between cultivator mercenaries are common. These mercenaries were mainly rogue cultivators. Most of the rogue cultivators who joined the mercenary group did so voluntarily. Most of them were forced to join because they had no other choice but to do so. Many people were tricked into joining. They wanted to make a quick buck, but after joining, they realized that it was actually very difficult to get out. Although they made a lot of money, they didn't dare to spend it in many cases, the leader of the shadowy figures called Yuzhong said honestly. Hearing this, Wang Ling and the others nodded. The history of cultivation mercenaries was more complicated, and Wang Ling still remembered old Antique's explanation of foreign history in history class. In many cases, the so-called cultivation mercenary organizations were established in secret. They didn't work for any country and only worked for their own organizations. Any country could secretly hire them and entrust them with some confidential work. Mercenary organizations didn't have a position. If there was a conflict over a mission, they would only work for the side with the higher price. As for these rogue cultivators who didn't have a position, most of them were unregistered. Apart from themselves, there was no other information on their identities. So after this group of people died, there was no way to trace their identities. It seems that the situation is very clear. Guoping said, I'm afraid most of these shadowy figures were rogue cultivator mercenaries from 100 years ago. We can't trace their identities, even if our children know their names now. That's it. Wang Ming nodded and looked at the leader of the shadowy figures in front of him. He took out an electronic map and put it in front of the leader. Now, I need you to point out the location of your base. The base is in the Palace of Mirrors. I can't point out the location on this map of yours. But I can point you to the entrance. After saying that, Yuzhong pointed to a location on the map and then pleaded, but please, don't exchange our butts. Don't worry, Wang Ming said. At this point, the interrogation was over. Star-Lord saw Wang Ling and the others off in front of Star-Lord Palace. Before leaving, Wang Ming asked the Divine Throne curiously, "Can swapping butts really break the Fate Down mark?" "Of course not. I don't know how to break it, so I just casually said it to scare him," the Divine Throne replied. Everyone. Roughly 10 minutes later, they appeared at the entrance to a secret alley in the Palace of Brocade. Wang Ming had made ample preparations, and had brought Wang Ling 2 and Wang Ling 1 with him. He was wearing the newly developed number 2, while Guo Ping was wearing the number 1 metal suit. Both of them were now equipped with combat strength. There were guards at the mouth of the alley. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, Wang Ling used his king's eye to cover the scene again, so that all the guards here could see the scene from an hour ago. This move could be said to be stealthy, and it was much better than invisibility spells. The leader of the Black Shadow Men wasn't lying. As soon as Wang Ling and the others entered the alley, they noticed the mouth on the wall. "How do we get in?" Guo Ping asked. Wang Ming used the deduction spell to think of all kinds of possibilities, then said, "You have to put your hand in the mouth and say the password. If it's wrong, your arm will be directly bitten off. But I haven't figured out what the password is for now. No need to go through so much trouble." At that moment, Wang Ling stepped forward. He reached out and touched the big mouth on the stone wall, then directly stabbed his hand in and directly pulled out a long red tongue. The stone mouth was caught off guard by Wang Ling's stab. It was too deep. This was a deep throat. The stab made its throat feel red and swollen. "Woo-woo." The stone mouth cried. It didn't have eyes, and tears flowed from its mouth. Wang Ling stared at the stone mouth, his expression as calm as an ancient well. "Let us in." The stone mouth, "Woo-woo, no, no." Wang Ling opened his dead fish eyes. "No, I'll beat you." Stone mouth, "I'll open." Chapter 989. After entering the Palace of Mirrors, Wang Ling and the others finally realized how strange this divine power was. They hadn't appeared at the mouth of an alley, but seemed to have been teleported to a random corner of the city. Furthermore, it wasn't just them, different people turned into light particles and gathered here at every moment. Some of these people were old, some were young. After appearing in this world, it was as if they had been bestowed with a new realm, and they actually took the initiative to walk in one direction. Among this vast crowd of people, there were quite a few people in white coats. "Isn't that old Qin?" Guo Ping spotted an acquaintance, but felt that something wasn't right, so he didn't step forward to stop the other party. "It looks like our guess is basically the same. These people might be people who died in the real world for various reasons, and sure enough, they were resurrected here." Wang Ming adjusted his armor and entered camouflage mode. In this mode, Wang Ling 1 and Wang Ling 2 would turn into what looked like human skin masks that would attach themselves to Wang Ming and Guo Ping for camouflage. This was a function that Wang Ling had come up with based on his Great Transfiguration spell, and after many experiments, Wang Ming had realized it. "Should we call him over and ask him about the situation?" Guo Ping stared at the back of the researcher surnamed Qin for a moment. He wanted to go forward and ask him about the situation, but before he could do so, the researcher in the white coat was immediately grabbed by several black shadows who had descended from the sky. This group of Black Shadow Men was exactly the same as the 5 people who had been caught previously. They were very skilled, and judging from their identities, they were probably the same untraceable cultivation mercenaries from 100 years ago. These people had also been resurrected after death, and then had sought refuge in this organization to become its most loyal subordinates. "What are you doing?" I want to register." The researcher surnamed Qin struggled. "Behave." The leader of the Black Shadow Men hit the researcher in the stomach, and he immediately fainted. There were busybodies nearby who were watching. "What are you doing? These people are criminals, and need to be put under special control. Mind your own business, line up and go to the dream house to register." The Black Shadow Man sneered. He then picked up the researcher, turned around, and disappeared into the air. The Black Shadows came and went as they pleased, leaving no trace behind. Clearly, they had received special orders to patrol the world and capture the researchers who had been resurrected and later arrived in the Palace of Mirrors. Admittedly, these researchers knew nothing about how they came to this world and how they died. Their memories had all been altered. This mode was a bit like a group of people entering a newbie village and being set to find a starting NPC to complete a specific quest. So what exactly was this dream house? Let's go take a look. Wang Ling and the others followed him. There were a lot of dream houses in this world for the purpose of registering people who had just returned to this world. Wang Ling followed the direction of the crowd and arrived at one of the houses. The nearby streets looked a little familiar. Dog 2 wagged its tail as it followed Wang Ling. Then, it broke out in a cold sweat at the sight of a statue in front of it. This was a statue of Dog 2 in its toad form. The location of the statue was exactly the same as the one near Central Street in Fong Xing's family's noodle shop, but the content was different. The original statue was of Audiobook stabbing it with a sword. But in the Palace of Mirrors, the content of the statue was of Audiobook being swallowed into its mouth. Is everything the opposite of the Palace of Mirrors? Wang Ming and the others were also astonished by this scene. No wonder the streets here felt a little familiar, but also a little different. The overall layout of the streets was the same, but the direction had changed. Some of the historical stories of the original world had also been altered to give completely different endings. Fong Xing's noodle shop had also changed its direction. The only difference was the dream house that the Black Shadows had mentioned just now. This was a place that the mastermind behind the scenes of this world had set up to register all newcomers. The layout of the dream house was very simple. A person dressed in the same Black Shadow suit was typing in front of a computer to register people. Next to him stood 2 Black Shadow thugs who were responsible for maintaining order. Everyone who came to the dream house would be asked some questions in turn, and the Black Shadow Man would then spin a roulette behind him. At first, Wang Ling and the others didn't understand what this roulette was for, but after seeing several people register, it suddenly dawned on them. Wang Ling and the others lined up at the back of the crowd, and a handsome boy stepped forward. "Name?" the Black Shadow Man in charge of registration asked. "Kai Yifun." The person in charge of registration entered the name into the computer for a query. Your name is Kai Yifun. You died because you loved playing basketball, but because you played too enchanting, people spurned you and turned you into a ghostly video. When you clicked on the ghostly video, your heart was affected by the frequency of the ghostly video, and your heartbeat inadvertently accelerated along with it until you finally died of excessive heartbeat. When the registrar said this, the young man seemed to remember something, and tears of grievance appeared in his eyes. "Yes, it's like this, I remember now. Now it's time to decide your fate." Then, the registrar turned the roulette behind him, and the needle of the roulette finally stopped on a strange rune. "Congratulations, it's the Tao of the human world. You can continue to live here as a human." The registrar smiled. "Human, don't worry, this is a beautiful world. Everyone here takes pride in playing basketball, and your enchanting dance will be appreciated here. I hope you can live a good life here. My name is Mingpa, I wouldn't lie to you." "Thank you." The young man showed a look of gratitude, but also a look of doubt. "Since I'm already dead, is this heaven? You can think of it that way. Transactions in this world don't require money, and all resources are shared. As long as you want, you can get whatever you want, and do whatever you want." The registrar smiled mysteriously. "Congratulations again, the chances of you turning over a new leaf are very low on the roulette. Looks like the 6 paths are written on this roulette. In the queue, Dog 2 said, Hell Path, Hungry Ghost Path, Animal Path, Human Path, Azura Path, and Underworld Path. Ever since the Heavenly Path became an independent path, the original Heavenly Path has been replaced by the Underworld Path. As soon as it finished speaking, a bespectacled, slightly bald, and knowledgeable old man walked up to it. Name? The black shadow man in charge of registration asked again. Chui Xian, the old man said. I found it, you died of overwork. Mingpa looked at the screen and said. The old man recalled some of his experiences before he died, and immediately begged, I beg you, Mingpa, let me enter the Tao of the human world. I'm not talented, but I brought a gift for you. These are a few books that I personally wrote. Oh. Looks like you're a talented man. The registrar with the code name Mingpa smiled, and took a look at the old man's books. These books were 3 years of college entrance examination, 5 years of simulation, 1, 3 years of college entrance examination, 5 years of simulation, 2, 3 years of college entrance examination, 5 years of simulation, 3, take him away. Mingpa's face was kind and benevolent. Not turning the roulette anymore. The black shadow on the side asked. No more, directly send him to the animal path. Chapter 990. Congratulations, you're a member of the human Tao. The dream room registrar smiled at Wang Ling, then took out a red stamp and tapped it on the back of Wang Ling's hand. This was the mark of the dream room. Everyone who entered this world and completed their registration would receive such a badge as proof of their identity. Of course, Wang Ling and the others had hacked in, so the truth was that there was no record of them on the registrar's computer. But now that the dream room registrar was under control, it was a piece of cake for Wang Ling to do this. They didn't know where Fang Xing was now, so they could only infiltrate this organization to uncover the conspiracy behind it. Dog 2 also smoothly passed the verification, but Wang Ling didn't let the wheel stop on the human Tao. The dream room registrar gazed at Loopy Toad with a benevolent expression. Congratulations, Mr. Dog, you're still a beast in this life. Dog 2 didn't think there was anything wrong with what the registrar said, but it still sounded a little weird. Why was this guy scolding people? Wang Ling and the others' registration went smoothly, but just as they were about to leave, the 2 shadow thugs next to the registrar called out to them. You guys, wait up. The shadow thugs had a vigilant expression on their faces as they stared at Wang Ling and the others, feeling a little strange. How can dead people who come to this world form teams? How did you guys die? Wang Ming, we died in the Infinity War. Someone snapped their fingers and we died. The shadow man frowned. The Infinity War. He was a mercenary who had died hundreds of years ago, and when all was said and done, he was an ancient person, so he didn't understand what Wang Ming meant at all. He just felt that the name of this war sounded very awesome. Was it a battle that had taken place after his death? The shadow man didn't understand. At that moment, Guoping added something in the dumbfounded shadow man's ear. Guoping, long live Hydra. The shadow man was stunned on the spot. He didn't know what this Hydra was, but for some reason, these words seemed to have a strange magical power that actually made him slightly dazed after he heard them. Wang Ling, Dog 2, Wang Ling and the others got into the spirit car. Just as the dream woman in the dream room had said, all forms of transportation and everything else in this world didn't require money. Just by relying on the engraving on their hands, they could pass through. Perhaps to these dead people, this was indeed a perfect world, but the most terrifying thing was that most of their memories had been tampered with. Although they knew the cause of their deaths, they didn't know how they died. After coming to this world, although they became residents, they lived more like puppets at the mercy of others. They might start over here, work again, marry again, have children again. But Wang Ling realized that the people in this world lived aimlessly. Sitting in the spirit car, Wang Ling looked around at everyone, but unexpectedly no one had a smile on their faces. Is this really okay? But Face asked as he stared in the direction of the shadowy thug after they had left the dream room. Don't worry. Wang Ming replied telepathically, these people have limited knowledge, and as mere thugs, it's very easy for them to be intimidated. However, we will only encounter one, so we should be careful. Wait, you can transmit messages. But Face was surprised. You underestimate my 2 sets of armor too much. Wang Ming smiled. At that moment, Wang Ling too had already activated the brainwave transmission function, and could rely on brainwaves to set up a local area network for sound transmission, which would allow them to communicate directly without being discovered. Where are we going now? This world is already under the control of the mysterious organization. Of course we have to figure out where their nest is. I've already marked the researcher who was captured just now. We should be able to find clues about the other researchers, Wang Ming said confidently. The place they were now going to was a munitions factory in the northern suburbs of Songhai City. It had originally been the headquarters of Weapon Saint Minister Ku, one of the 10 generals. Now that so many researchers had been killed in the real world and brought back to this world, it was likely that the other party was plotting some huge, unspeakable conspiracy. Is this the place? After the spirit car stopped closest to the northern suburbs, Wang Ling and the others decided to walk there to avoid alerting the enemy. That was because on their way here, they had noticed that apart from the Black Shadow men, there was no one else flying on a sword in the sky. Everyone was using ground transportation, which was the complete opposite of the real world. After the era of national cultivation, it was common for people to cross the road on a sword. As long as they didn't drink and drive, they wouldn't be punished. Then, Wang Ling opened his king's eye and used a pupil technique to cover the scene here. The scene was also fixed on an hour ago. The munitions factory was heavily guarded and desolate. One look was enough to tell that there was a huge secret inside. There were now many ways to detect invisibility, but fortunately with the power of the king's eye, it wouldn't be so easy for these people to discover them. As they approached the munitions factory, Wang Ling heard a conversation between several Black Shadow men standing guard at the door. Bro, what on earth is being made inside? It looks like a magic staff, the insider replied. I escorted a man in a white coat inside just now to take a look. This magic staff looks a little strange. It's a pretty boy in suspenders holding a basketball, and the light from the magic staff shoots out directly from the basketball. It's pretty powerful. Pretty boy in basketball, could it be? You don't understand. This bro is now the symbol of peace in our palace of mirrors. Wang Ling and the others, this world was a little scary. Elsewhere in the real world, an emergency meeting was being held in the conference room of the 10 generals of Huaxiao Alliance. In the blink of an eye, an unknown Black Shadow organization had killed so many researchers, which shocked the top echelons of the world. The head of state appeared in a projection with an ugly expression on his face. Who can tell me what the hell is going on? This group of people is organized and planned, so they must have come prepared. Looking at the current situation, there is definitely a spy inside our research institute, President Qi said. Spy? I'm afraid so, Your Excellency Head of State, President Qi said. President Qi said, the fortifications of each country's research institutes are top-notch. For the other party to be able to break through so easily, there must be a spy passing on secret information behind the scenes. I'm afraid that the start of all this has something to do with the breach of Mixiu's border defense base a few days ago. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.